Also done.
And you're looking at live pictures right now of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. This is Signature Aviation, which is what's called an FBO, or fixed-based operator. It's where private planes land. And we soon expect to see Donald Trump's 757 emblazoned with the Trump name. We are now hearing a 7:05 arrival time at ATL, that's Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where tail number N757AF will be pulling up to this spot. Already we have Secret Service and others there ready to start the motorcade. That motorcade will take the short trip to the Fulton County Jail at Rice Street. And you're saying short trip? There's no such thing as a short trip in Atlanta. There is when you have a police escort. Most defendants show up in jail in a police car. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, will be escorted by police cars and protected by the Secret Service. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brendan Keefe, Chief Investigative Reporter for Atlanta News First. You're watching Atlanta News First Plus on our many platforms and Gray television stations and digital platforms around the nation. This is a big day. It is a sad day because the former president of the United States is about to be arrested formally here in Fulton County, Georgia. These are serious charges, multiple felonies, an indictment that was handed up by a Fulton County grand jury, 19 defendants, the former president one of them, and accused as the mastermind, the head of a criminal enterprise. That is what the indictment says. Of course, he is innocent until proven guilty. You're watching continuing live coverage of the anticipated moment when Donald Trump arrives here in Atlanta and then turns himself in to be booked in the Fulton County Jail. He will be booked in the Fulton County Jail like any other criminal defendant. The sheriff here in Fulton County, Sheriff Labatt, said he's going to treat Donald Trump like any other defendant. Of course, that's impossible because no other defendant has lifetime Secret Service protection. Every single president of the United States, former or current, is entitled to round-the-clock Secret Service protection for the rest of their natural lives. That includes Donald Trump, and that includes Donald Trump while he is accused of felonies and even if he's convicted of felonies. If that happens, it's going to be a logistical nightmare, but he still will be entitled to Secret Service protection, which raises the question of whether he could even be incarcerated. He will not be behind bars tonight. While he will be in the jail at Rice Street, he will not spend one moment behind bars. He will be in the facility, but he'll have a brief exam, which includes a weigh-in where they record the vitals. Basically, I don't mean like heart and that kind of thing. It's just simply height, weight, eye color, hair color, and then a mugshot. That's normally taken because a defendant, once released on bond, might not return to court, and they need their description and a photograph. Obviously, there's no such photograph needed to know what Donald Trump looks like, but they said they're going to follow the standard booking procedures. And the idea from both the district attorney, from the judge, from the sheriff, is that, you know, if a regular criminal defendant has to go through these things, then a former president accused of crimes has to do the same. Again, these are very serious charges. We're going to talk about the legal issues here in a moment. But what we're going to see today is not an arraignment. It's a different process here in Fulton County than you may see in other jurisdictions, where the arraignment or first appearance is a separate process from the booking. What we're going to see is very similar to what we'd see in the situation where a criminal defendant is arrested and then brought in by a police officer or sheriff's deputy to be processed at the jail. In this case, there's the picture of the Rice Street Jail. In this case, rather than being incarcerated, the former president has negotiated a bond. A $200,000 bond will be posted, either in cash by the former president or by a bondsman. And even if you use a bail bondsman, it doesn't mean you can't afford the bail. It's sort of like taking out a mortgage. You only have to pay a certain amount of money, 10 or 15%, and then the bondsman puts the rest up for you, and that just assures your return to court. That's all it is. It's like a deposit. It just makes sure that you show up back to court, and it is instead of sitting in jail awaiting trial. That's what bond is. That's what bail is. It's saying, you know, we could hold you if we wanted to make sure you show up to court, but we're going to let you go and in pending trial because you're innocent until proven guilty. And while you're awaiting trial, that bond assures your return to court. That's all it is. Now, again, we're not expecting a first appearance here. We're not expecting any court proceedings whatsoever at this point. Fani Willis, the district attorney here in Fulton County, has requested a hearing that for all of these 19 defendants the week of September 4th. She wants to start September 5th and into that week. We do know that there will be cameras in the courtroom. The reason we know is because we were one of the parties who requested cameras in the courtroom with what's known as a Rule 22. It's simply the rules of the Superior Court where in Georgia, the news media can request to be present with microphones and cameras, and that request is almost always granted by the judge unless there's a compelling reason like a juvenile testifying or some other reason. But in this case, the cameras have already been allowed in the courtroom for those arraignments that will take place now at a later date. Tonight's issue will not involve what you see here, which is the Fulton County Courthouse, because even though we have cameras there, we don't expect any activity at the Fulton County Courthouse. The former president, Donald Trump, will show up at the airport. We'll take a motorcade. You're looking at a live picture right now of the parking lot of Signature Aviation. Again, this is a live picture, so expect the chopper, the helicopter, to be racking focus and that kind of thing. The yellow vehicle you see there is one of the airport ambulances. The airport has 5 dedicated ambulances. And then you also see motorcycles there for a motorcade, and there are other vehicles there for a motorcade. You see the other private jets there. This is on the north side of the airport. The airport, a lot of people don't realize, is in multiple jurisdictions. The runway you see there, I believe it's, I think that's 26 left. 18 right, 26 left. So you see a plane landing there. That's 18 right, 26 left. That plane would be landing on 26 left, 26 right. Sorry, I'm always screwing those up. I apologize about that. But that's the northernmost runway. So to give you sort of, if you've flown out of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, there are 5 parallel runways. This is the northernmost runway you're looking at. So right now, this shot is looking towards Hapeville. This is, and that in the background there would be I-75 you're looking at right now. Just again to orient you, because the helicopter looks like it may be going to refuel at this point. But that shot right now, that's the Porsche Experience Center. That's right off of I-75. And the plane, as we can see, the planes are landing from the east. So right now, Donald Trump's 757, tail number November 757, Alpha Foxtrot, is in the air. We don't know exactly where because the former president chooses to not track his plane. So if you go to FlightAware or any one of those tracking systems, he has opted out of that tracking. So we can't track his plane in the air, but we do know when it took off and we know how long it takes to get here. So we're now expecting a 7:05 landing. The helicopter, by the way, having spent 5 years as a helicopter reporter flying left seat, I can tell you that even though it looks like it's very close to the airport, it is actually, rather than at the ends of the runways, it's sort of perpendicular to the runways. So it's nowhere near the approach pattern or the takeoff pattern. And again, just because of the prevailing winds that are coming out of the west, the aircraft right now are landing, hold on. All right, we're just getting an update that the Secret Service has indicated that we're looking at a 20-minute arrival from now. That would tend to fit with what we've been hearing. Now, that would probably be wheels down, 7 o'clock. Taxi, 7:05. Then we have the motorcade. We've been hearing pretty much all day, 7:30 arrival time at Rice Street, and that looks like it's going to be spot on. Again, just to give you, paint a picture of what you're looking at, this is a live picture now of Signature Aviation. It is what's called an FBO, or fixed-based operator. It's where private aircraft are serviced and refueled. There's actually a really nice lobby there. This is where some of the nicer business jets come in. If you're wondering why he's not at DeKalb Peachtree Airport, PDK, where Rudy Giuliani flew into and out of yesterday on a private jet, that's because Donald Trump doesn't fly a small sort of you see citations or Lear jets like you see in the top of the screen there. He flies a much larger aircraft. It's a 757. It's bigger than the 737 you take on Southwest. In fact, the aircraft we're looking at there appears to be similar in size to a 737, perhaps an Airbus A321. Donald Trump's plane is bigger than that. Just as the aircraft here, meaning the helicopter, is repositioning, you're just looking at the skid of the helicopter in the shot here. The camera's on the nose. This is a ground shot now, and you can see some more pictures of the vehicles that are going to be part of the motorcade. Again, the yellow vehicle there that you can see in the lower center of your frame is an airport ambulance. The ambulances are run at the airport by Atlanta Fire Rescue. There are 5 of them, and that is obviously standard procedure when you're involved with a president or now a former president, to have an ambulance there in case there's any incident along the way. They don't have to wait for an ambulance to arrive. So back now to the chopper shot. This is zoomed in. We have a 72x zoom lens on this helicopter that's allowing us to get these shots. We're not actually that close to the airport. And obviously the helicopter is in constant contact with air traffic control there at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. So to set the stage, if you're just joining us, we are awaiting the arrival of Donald John Trump, the former president of the United States, 45th president of the United States, who is facing multiple felony counts as part of an indictment handed up by the Fulton County grand jury. He is going to turn himself in to the jail at Rice Street. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office will process him like any other criminal defendant. The difference here is he will have Secret Service protection, and that both will smooth things in some ways and complicate them in others. We are told this is what's going to happen. They will quickly take his weight and height measurements. They will process him into booking as if he's booked into the jail, but he won't spend a moment behind bars. Just as we're adjusting the camera, here's a live picture of Rice Street. That's the entrance there. Rice Street itself is closed, and there were, just racking the focus here, that's what photographers do. We zoom in, we rack focus, and then we zoom out. But here's your standard shot. So then what's going to happen after those vital information, that sort of height, weight, hair color, eye color is taken down, then what they're going to do is they're going to take his fingerprints electronically. They haven't used ink for a few years now, so you basically just roll your finger on this little sort of laser infrared reader. It's basically glass. That then they roll each finger, and then they also take both thumbs, and they take 4 fingers at a time, left and right hand. That is standard. That's to identify the defendant going forward and becomes part of the record. And then the last thing would be the mugshot. We have received the mugshots from the previous defendants. Just some examples here on the screen. And what these are the mugshots that have been taken. Here's Mark Meadows, for example, the former White House Chief of Staff. It does appear that they've actually improved the camera a little bit. I think they got some critique, including from me early on. If we go back to some of these earlier mugshots, you can see, I don't want to get in too much of this sidebar here, but you can see they're kind of blown out, the lighting coming from the upper right there. And then as we go to some of the newer mugshots, you can see that they've improved the quality a little bit. Sort of a dry run before the former president of the United States, Donald John Trump, will be showing up at Rice Street for that mugshot. The reason we have the mugshots, you're asking, why do we have them? They are public record in Georgia under OCGA 501870 et sec, which is the Open Records Act. The only reason I can quote it by chapter and verse is because investigative reporters live and breathe by the Open Records Act. This isn't something where the sheriff has chosen to release these mugshots. They're required to release them. The one thing we're required to do is say, hey, we're news media, we want these, and we're not going to sell them, or we're not going to hold them hostage for ransom, which the law is basically designed to say that you can't put up mugshots and then charge to take them down. We're basically agreeing we're not going to do that. But these mugshots have become public. We do expect Donald Trump's mugshot to become public, but it may not be released tonight, and here's why. The procedure that the Sheriff's Office has been using all week has been to release mugshots at around 4 p.m., whether they were taken that day or the day before. So if a mugshot was taken, or a booking photo is the official term, was taken after 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, then they will be released the next day. Given the intense interest in this, it is possible that the sheriff's office will break protocol and will simply release those immediately, because there is such interest in this particular mugshot, including possibly from the Trump campaign itself. It is expected that the president, former president, I should say, who's now running for president again, may in fact use this mugshot to try to fundraise off of. He's already used the previous indictments to do that fundraising. I want to bring in one of the foremost legal minds now, Josh Schiller, who's one of the top defense attorneys, Josh Schiffer, I should say. Apologize for that. And Josh, it's you and I have kind of been going to, in the trenches on this story from the beginning. What are you looking for tonight?
Really it's what is Donald Trump going to choose, and it's his choice as to how this process is going to be shared with the nation. He has, unlike so many other people, really options at his fingertips as to whether he wants this to be quiet and reserved, or more likely use this and include it in the message that he's been spreading as part of his campaign for president, as well as his campaign to defend himself. How he sets that narrative, no one does it better. The master of messaging, former President Donald Trump.
You know, a lot of people have been literally betting over this. There's an over-under in Vegas on, does he smile? Does he not smile? I'm sort of old enough as a reporter to remember Tom DeLay, the former House Majority Leader. I was a reporter in Houston when he was indicted, and he was really the first politician to smile like it was a yearbook photo. There's sort of two schools of thought here, Donald, and it sounds like it's trivial, but there really are two schools of thought, that Donald Trump might smile to make it sort of look less serious, or at least less negative, so to speak, or he might have a more stern look to be like, hey, I'm owning this. I hate to ask you for a prediction, but what do you think is, if he was your client, what would you advise?
Oh, I imagine he's going to be a more welcoming, proud, and assertive face than someone who's really angry. I think he's going to project power, because that's part of his brand, as being in control and getting to make as many choices and preserving as many pathways as possible.
Interesting.
He is a gentleman that was, to use an old Southern colloquialism, born in the briar patch and fought his way. He's been in litigation his entire adult life. And so it's not a surprise that here, after his term as president and while running for another, this is not someone who's intimidated or scared by litigation, despite this being unlike anything he's faced before. This is the largest chance or opportunity for incarceration that he's ever encountered.
Well, I have a couple of legal questions for you, because this has been quite a day. As you know, the courts, and I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but the courts, particularly in Fulton County, tend to run at the speed of government. And so, some cases drag on for years. Motions there can be weeks or months between motions. We've had a flurry of motions in the last 24 hours. The first motion was by Kenneth Chesbrough, a lawyer who is accused of being part of this sort of alternate or fake electors plot. And he filed a motion for a speedy trial. Now, you know this better than I do. In Georgia, if you file for a motion for speedy trial, a clock starts ticking, right? How long is that clock?
Absolutely, and it's 2 terms of court, and it requires, it's not something that people get to pick and choose. No, it is a requirement under the statutory speedy to try the case within the appropriate time. Otherwise, the state loses its ability, it forfeits its ability to pursue the charges included in that indictment. And as we saw today, Judge McAfee came out and has basically approved Mr. Chesbrough's. And it's going to be absolutely fascinating how everyone reacts, because currently, and this may change, this story is evolving faster than anything I've ever seen. Right now, Kenneth Chesbrough has a trial date scheduled by himself in front of Judge McAfee on the counts he is facing. Whether anybody else is there, whether he stands by himself or others are severed or not severed, we don't know, but we're following it closely.
Well, so here we have the order, and it says an October 23rd trial. That would be essentially the day we start jury selection, right? If it's October 23rd?
Absolutely. That's what the judge's order and Judge McAfee's trial order, going in line with pretty much all other trial scheduling orders, is explicit and unambiguous. There's no questions that can be asked about when things are due, when people are required to have certain items performed, and it's enforceable. By giving notice to everyone this far in advance, no one involved can claim they weren't ready, they weren't prepared. It also places the case, due to a speedy trial, above all other priority issues the lawyers may be having.
So if they have other cases on their calendar, they were going to have to park those.
A speedy trial is a great way to jump some of the conflict issues any case involving 19 co-defendants is going to have.
So this is a good question for you, Josh. Then what does this mean for the other 18 defendants, including Donald Trump?
I'm going to assume Judge McAfee's going to give options if other people want to jump in and join Mr. Cheesebro. Right now, we're hearing that people are objecting to this. And there may be objections because they want Mr. Cheesebro tried with their client, or they may be objecting and supporting that Mr. Cheesebro needs to be tried independently. That trial obviously would give a firm snapshot of the state's case against the remaining defendants, a free look at what Fani Willis is going to bring against the remaining defendants.
So in other words, just seeing this, if you're Donald Trump's attorneys, you basically get to, it's sort of like going to the football game the week before the game to see the opponent and see what plays they have.
Exactly. And Mr. Cheesebro faces far fewer counts than President Trump. He's only limitedly named, I believe it's less than 5 or 7 counts. It would only be on those counts, but it's still a snapshot of how Fani Willis's office is going to proceed on this. They are going to be due the discovery. Now that it has been set on a trial calendar, that discovery due date has been set by Judge McAfee, and it shall be followed. If not, there are consequences and remedies, such as striking evidence, such as limiting the power to make certain arguments. Courts in Georgia, judges specifically, hold extraordinary discretion when it comes to effectuating the remedies involved in trial management.
The only reason I'm looking off screen, just if you're watching, right now and you're saying, why do you keep looking off screen? I'm watching, there's no shot to really show you right now, but I'm watching our helicopter shot, which is scanning the skies, but because we're expecting Donald Trump 757, tail number November 757 Alpha Foxtrot, to show up at any moment coming in from the east. And the moment it does, we will cut to that shot. In the meantime, let me just lay it out real quick, Josh, for folks at home who may not understand all the legal wranglings that led to this October 23rd trial just for Kenneth Chesebro. And so essentially, he filed a speedy trial motion. And some people think it may be like freezing the kicker. By filing the speedy trial motion, you're forcing Fani Willis's hand to say, okay, it's basically, you say I did these crimes, let's go to trial. And then the idea was that the prosecutor, the DA, might say, hey, I'm not ready yet. Instead, Fani Willis filed a motion saying, yep, we're ready. In fact, we want to try all 19 defendants on October 23rd. That led to Donald Trump's lawyers, including his new legal team, filing a motion saying, whoa, pump the brakes here. We're not part of this. We don't want to go to trial October 23rd. We haven't even been arraigned yet on these charges. We haven't even had a plea yet. We don't want to be part of this. And then also saying they're going to have a motion to sever. And what sever means is simply to separate the cases so they're not all tried together. So if this was your client, you'd say, no, I want to be tried separately. What's the advantage of being tried separately?
Oh, you get a lot of ability to point at the empty chair. You're going to be dealing with a much more limited context of the evidence presented. Judges will limit evidence to what's relevant for the charges brought. So they don't get to tell the story of all 19 co-defendants for someone that's just facing certain portions of the overarching conspiracy. It's actually doubling, tripling, or magnifying the work Fani Willis's office must perform, but at the same time, it's a dry run for the state against one defendant standing by themselves. So they'll go through that evidence, work on how it's going to be presented, kind of like a mini focus group.
I hate to break away from you, Josh. If we can go to this shot from the helicopter. Now, look, this is a hazy telephoto shot, but we are hearing, okay, that's just, that looks like just a regular commercial airliner. We're scanning the skies. I have a friend who is actually tracking the flight right now, another journalist. And they're, at last indication, we're dropping at 4,900 feet and approaching from, you can see there's a couple of helicopters here in the sky. Just to sort of point where we are here, this is the east side of the airport. This is the northernmost runway. The aircraft are landing from the east to the west. Again, to orient you, that's I-75 that you're seeing is the highway in the shot there. And if you've flown in, this is when you're flying in, if you've flown into ATL, you're looking out the right window and seeing downtown. If you're on the sort of, I guess that would be the starboard side of the aircraft, you'd be seeing downtown Atlanta. Again, to orient you, that's the Porsche Experience Center there in the lower part of the frame. We are expecting any moment Donald Trump's plane to be coming in for a landing. It is now 6:56. We have crews across the city right now, including at the airport. This is sort of typical hazy conditions here for a heat wave, the heat dome that's been over Atlanta. So this is why we keep scanning back and forth. You know, I've run one of these FLIR cameras in the helicopter, and you know, you've got to kind of zoom in, rack the focus, check the shot, zoom out. That's just a Frontier flight. They're checking every flight coming in. The other thing, though, is the pilot and the camera operator are also listening to air traffic control. And there's multiple air traffic control frequencies, but one of them is simply the approach control frequency. And so I'm sure they have both of those up right now. They're both talking to the tower in terms of maneuvering because they are inside of Class B airspace right there. So our helicopter had to be cleared into Class Bravo airspace, but they're also probably listening. That's just our microwave transmitter there that's in the shot, and we're rotating around. And as we do, we're continuing to scan the skies because we are expecting now, really at any moment, we're hearing touchdown in 3 minutes. That was the projected touchdown. And, okay, at 6:55, they were over Conyers at 4,900 feet. That would indicate a descent. So it does look like we've got the aircraft coming in now, just out of sight. And I know, you know, look, we're tracking this like it's, you know, there's a news helicopter, another news helicopter, perhaps a police helicopter in the shot. You're wondering, hey, why are we giving you minute by minute? Because this is a historic moment. This is the former president of the United States who is about to land in Atlanta to be booked into jail. Again, he won't spend a minute behind bars, but he will be custodially arrested. He won't be put in handcuffs, but from a very technical and legal point of view, he will be arrested, and then he will be released on bond. That's a Delta flight coming in, and we're just about to toss to our ongoing coverage on Atlanta News First. We are going to have a 7 p.m. show that is going to stream, so stick with this stream. So if you're outside of our area, outside of our viewing area, you can see us right here on this stream in continuing coverage. We have teams all over the city. We have a crew at the courthouse. We have multiple crews at the jail. We have our news helicopter here that's getting these shots. And then, of course, we have a team of experts just waiting to provide context because this is a historic moment. But it's also important to point out that former President Donald Trump is innocent until proven guilty. He's entitled to due process. But this is how the American system works.
With breaking news.
It is an historic night in Atlanta. The former president of the United States set to be arrested and processed right here in Fulton County. I'm Tracy Hutchins.
I'm Alan Devlin. We're talking about Donald Trump. Take a look. Our camera's live right now at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. We're getting word that the former president's plane is expected to land at any moment now. From here, he will make his way to the Fulton County Jail.
He is just one of 19 people indicted last week on more than 40 racketeering and conspiracy charges related to alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election right here in Georgia.
Our crew's live tonight to walk you through what's happening right now as it happens and what to expect as this case moves forward.
Let's get straight out to Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon. He's at the Fulton County Jail. Doug, you've been covering this story for us for weeks now, and this is the fourth time we've seen Donald Trump go through this process this year alone.
Yeah, it certainly is, guys, but this time will be very different for the former president for a number of different reasons. We expect him here in the next couple of minutes. He said on his own social media site that he would be arriving here at 7:30. And why this will be different from his other cases, one, he will actually have to come here to be booked and processed fingerprinted and background checked, just like any other defendant here in Fulton County. And he will also have his mugshot taken. That was something that Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labat told us was going to be an absolute certainty. He said it's something that they simply do for all detainees here at the jail, and they are not going to treat the former president any different. That is not something he has had to do in his cases in New York, Miami, or Washington, D.C. So again, we expect him here in the next couple minutes. We know he is on the ground. It is still a sweltering hot Georgia summer day out here, and while the temperatures haven't gone down much, neither have the crowds. There are quite a few of the president's supporters and the former president's opponents as well here to either greet him or just to see the spectacle that comes with the former president turning himself in. A couple of minutes ago, we heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is one of the senators here, a congresswoman here in Georgia. We're going to let Tori kind of explain exactly what she was talking about, but this will by far be the highest profile detainee in this case out of the 19 to turn himself in here at the Fulton County Jail. Rudy Giuliani was here yesterday. It was absolute mayhem when he gave a press conference just behind me where we're standing now. And of course, we know that there was another big development here in this case today. October 23rd, that is going to be the first court date for one of these defendants. That was something that came down on the court filing document system today. I know we've talked about it in past hours, but that will be for Kenneth Chesborough. Interestingly enough, he was the first person to turn himself in here at the Fulton County Jail. And of course, as we await the former president's arrival here, and I'm being told actually that we now have a shot of him landing here at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. So we're going to let you take a look at that now. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.
As you just mentioned,
guys, back to you.
This is a live look right there at former President Donald Trump's private plane. He's flying in from Bedminster, the golf club there in New Jersey. He has an estate there that he essentially used as a second home during his presidency. And you can actually see Trump written on the side of the plane there. Again, will be landing in just moments there at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. So these are live images from the Atlanta News First chopper right now. And once the president lands, this is all expected to happen very, very quickly, Alan. He will land there at the airport, and of course there will be a motorcade down to the Fulton County Jail where he will be processed, and this whole thing, again, is expected to happen very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And so anybody here in Atlanta, you know, going to and from, let's say, the jail where he's headed from Hartsfield-Jackson usually is about 14 miles, about a 14-mile route. In rush hour, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. This is going to be a presidential motorcade. All former presidents, as you know, get that same treatment for the duration of their lives. And APD, along with all of the corresponding and surrounding agencies, are out there to protect the president and ensure that that is a clear route directly to the jail and then directly back to the airport. As Tracy, you were just saying, Trump right there on the side of that plane. No mistaking, this is the former president. Trump Force One is actually what he refers to his Boeing plane as it lands here at Hartsfield. This is going to be a quick process. He could be in and out as quickly as 2 or 3 hours when it comes down to being in Atlanta. The normal route you'd expect is right up I-85 North for the president, but of course they're not going to tell us where that route's going to be. So we'll pretty much learn that as it's happening in real time. That is to protect the president. And Tracy, we do know that a lot of his legal team, a lot of his people are going to be traveling in that motorcade with him. He's going to be surrounded by his team the entire time, including the lawyer that we just learned he appointed today, Sadow, who's now stepping in for Finling. He will be in that motorcade, likely in the same vehicle as the president, Tracy, as they make their way from Hartsfield to Rice Street.
Yeah, and the president, actually, the former president, just changed attorneys earlier today. So this is all happening very rapidly. And the timing on this is very important because they tried to, the district attorney's office, of course, with law enforcement, of course, with Donald Trump's team, tried to time this out so that they would not be in heavy traffic. We know here in Atlanta, there really is no time during the week, even the weekend, where you don't encounter any traffic. But certainly that was negotiated along with law enforcement to make sure to get the president in and out as quickly as possible without shutting down the entire city. So this is expected to happen within a matter of just 2 hours or so. And we do know that the former president, once he appears there at the Rice Street Jail, it's said to be, you know, the whole process said to be like any other average person who's booked into the jail. That in some ways is the case, in some ways is not. As we know, for a lot of people who are waiting their day in court, waiting for their arraignment, waiting for this process, it doesn't happen this quickly for them. Of course, for a high-profile politician like former President Donald Trump, they're trying to expedite this process. And of course, we do have reporters out at the Rice Street Jail, and that security, as we know, has been ramped up. In preparation for this day. We've been looking at shots there in front of the jail, and you can see the street is cordoned off. You know, when we have a big parade or any other big event, they essentially barricade the street with, say, large dump trucks, in this case, large buses, and everything is cordoned off. There are a number of deputies on scene there and a number of people making sure that this is all kept down, kept peacefully in front of the Rice Street Jail, and that nothing happens.
Exactly. And this is one of the most significant, if not the single most significant day of coverage when it comes for every police officer and law enforcement officer involved in this situation. And Tracy, you mentioned his arrival at that jail. I do not want it to be understated. Once he sets foot inside the Fulton County Jail, the former president is in custody. He is under arrest. That is what this surrendering will be today. And I'll tell you, we are going to keep our eyes on the plane because he's going to be deplaning here in the next several minutes, a very quick process. He's going to be inside that jail in the next probably 45 minutes, I would say. Tracy, a straight shot to the jail. He's going to get a mugshot taken, likely, according to the sheriff. They say this is going to be like any other process. There's going to be a full-on booking, fingerprints, everything. The rap sheet's going to come up, and he's got 4 charges right now pending as a former president. Like I said, we've got reporters spread out all over this area, including the courthouse and the jail. Atlanta News First reporter Brittany Ford right now, one of our reporters who's actually at the airport right outside where that plane is landing, ready for the president to step off. Brittany, what can you tell us?
Well, Alan, yeah, as you've seen, Trump Force One has landed, and what I can say has been a smooth process so far. We're now waiting for that, as you mentioned, deplaning process to begin. We've seen Trump's motorcade ready and in place to escort him to the Fulton County Jail, where he will be booked. But I can tell you, there has been a heavy show of law enforcement in anticipation of Donald Trump's arrival here at Hartsfield-Jackson. We've seen Georgia State Patrol, Atlanta Police, and the Fulton County Sheriff's Office all out here on standby. Have also seen some Secret Service out here as well, as we wait to see what will happen next. But again, Trump Force One has landed. We've seen the plane land just about 2 minutes ago. Law enforcement, the motorcade, now on standby for what will be the deplaning process of former President Donald Trump as he heads to the Fulton County Jail in this historic indictment process. But again, right now things seem to be very calm. We've seen, law enforcement turn their lights on. They've gotten into position. Again, the motorcade in position. But now we're just awaiting those critical moments where he will deplane and now make his way to the Fulton County Jail. But again, we'll stay on top of the situation at the airport as that process begins and bring you the latest. But for now, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Brittany, thank you. As we take a live look right there on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see Trump Force One there on the tarmac as the former president gets ready to deplane. A number of other members of Trump's core group, of course, landing there with him on the tarmac. And this process will be pretty quick.
And there's the motorcade. Yeah,
we see the motorcade driving up. So, of course, they will get as close to that plane as possible. And the former president will get in there in one of those vehicles, one of those SUVs, and also his new attorney, Alan, that you mentioned, Stephen Sadow, has a high profile himself.
Yeah.
He's represented a number of clients in other RICO cases, and more than likely, this is why the former president and some of his close team members wanted to get an attorney like this who has this kind of experience. There's a number of cars in that motorcade right there. This is something that we will not be able to miss on the freeway as Atlanta News First Chopper kind of tracks this down. We have a live image right there from the tarmac. We can see a number of people getting off the plane there. We will watch and wait as the former president gets off. But again, this whole process expected to be pretty quick because the former president agreed to a $200,000 bond release earlier this week. And he only had to come up with 10% of that.
Yeah.
So some $20,000. And that is standard here in Fulton County. But that is something that, of course, we are waiting and watching to see. Because this is a historic day. The nation is watching us here in Atlanta and in Fulton County as DA Fani Willis brought these charges against former President Trump and 18 other defendants right now. And of course, we do want to make clear, these are just charges. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. There is still a trial that needs to happen. No telling how long that could drag out. Of course, there has been one of the defendants who requested an earlier trial, and DA Fani Willis went to a judge. A judge agreed. You know what? You want that? You got it. Be careful what you ask for. October 23rd. So started that. Part of that process is already starting. Of course, it would be difficult to try all 19 of those defendants at the same time, including the former president. But we continue to wait and watch. And no doubt, this is an opportunity for the former president as he runs for political office, in the 2024 election, that this is all part of his campaign. Yeah. Even though he wasn't at last night's debate, he was mentioned. He was the person that was absent in the room that was most notable, and everyone else is running against former President Donald Trump. I think in recent polls, up by as much as 40%. 40
points.
He had no need to be at the debate last night. He didn't. And, when we talk about, there are some people who say, yes, he could possibly use a mugshot in this case as another effort to bolster his campaign. That say, hey, they arrested me, you could be next. We've heard that rhetoric before, and that could be what is used possibly once if the former president has a mugshot taken. That is usually the process in Fulton County. We don't expect it to be any different this time around. Sheriff Pat Labat said that is what is going to happen, fingerprinted and also a mugshot as well. Let's head over to Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakram. She's standing by in our newsroom. And Joy, as we await the former president to step off of Trump Force One, you have a number of legal experts there with you. What is the thought process today? Because this is expected to be a quick process for the former president as he gets off the plane, as he makes his way to the Fulton County Jail.
That's right. It is expected to be a fairly quick process, as you say, Tracy. And it's very interesting because on one hand, we keep hearing this kind of storyline that the former president is going to be processed and booked and fingerprinted and his mugshot taken just like any other criminal defendant, but that's not exactly true because
and Joy, I want to cut you off really quickly. As the former president just got off of the plane, I apologize, Joy. I want to make sure our viewers can see this right now. Here is the president giving a thumbs up as he walks down that staircase and likely will very quickly move into that motorcade. I'm sure right now there are some reporters shouting questions. He looked like he might have answered one, and there he goes into the motorcade. The clock starts as soon as that door closes, and he is on his way to the Fulton County Jail. You can see Secret Service right now moving the camera, saying, get back or get out of the way. We're going to stay with this shot and see exactly where they're moving them. Looks like they're walking underneath Trump Force One, and you can see the team now moving under the plane. This is back from the Atlanta News First Chopper, showing the size of that motorcade. All presidential motorcades, current or former president, they look about the same. They have almost 40 vehicles sometimes to ensure everything is needed. So as we just saw Donald Trump getting into that Escalade, that Cadillac Escalade, to make his way to the jail, where the next step, Tracy, is going to be getting processed, likely getting a mugshot. Every single person who has entered the jail so far, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Kenneth Chesborough, Sidney Powell, Ray Smith, David Schaefer, Kathy Latham, John Eastman, Scott Hall, Harrison Floyd, every single one of them has had a mugshot. And I want to point out, Harrison Floyd remains in jail. He did not reach a bond agreement, but the former president right here has reached a bond agreement. Like you said, $200,000, 10%, up to 15% in the state of Georgia. So he'll be paying $20,000 to get out. His process will not be like most inmates at the Fulton County Jail, who can spend upwards of 60 days on average, whether they're indicted or not. He's going to be in and out. He's a former president, and yet the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and District Attorney Fonnie Willis have made it very clear they're going to treat him as close to every other citizen as they possibly can. The next steps here, Tracy, as we can assume, is that this motorcade is going to start moving here very quickly right up to the jail.
Pretty quickly. And as we saw the former president step off the plane, pretty indicative of how he has been, giving a wave and a thumbs up. And as you mentioned, probably some reporters shouted some questions, more than likely, how are you feeling, former president, today? And, you know, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from them. But we had heard previously that he might possibly make some statements to reporters. We will see if that in fact happens, and that motorcade about to take off. And we'll find out exactly which direction they're going in. No doubt the shortest route to get to the Rice Street Jail in downtown Atlanta. And as we watch this motorcade, Joy, we want to head back to you again. And apologies for interrupting you, but certainly wanted to see the president walk off of his own private plane there. But some thoughts, and we have a number of law enforcement. Yeah, this is huge. This will no doubt block some traffic along the freeway there. So again, Joy, we're going to head back to Joy in just a bit as we watch this motorcade. Head out. Brittany Ford is right outside the airport there. Brittany, what are you seeing? All right, we may not have Brittany right now. She may be moving to another location, possibly had to move because of Secret Service. Who knows? The cameras as well may have had to move. She may have some difficulty hearing us too. But we're watching this all happen. And let's go back to the indictment that was just last week. And of course, DA Fonnie Willis gave all the defendants up until tomorrow at noon to turn themselves in. A number already have, but there are 13 felony counts against the former president, including the Georgia RICO, violating that act, kind of more or less a catch-all. And a way to cast a wide net for this. 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath of office by a public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy. So the list goes on and on. We want to go back to Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakrin as we watch this motorcade head to the Fulton County Jail. Joy, back to our previous question, when we talk about how expeditious this whole process could be for the former president.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really one of, just the timing in itself, and just kind of the fact that this is going to be an expedited booking process really flies in the face of this narrative that we've heard, which is that the former president is going to be booked and processed as like any other criminal defendant, in terms of doing the paperwork, the fingerprinting, the mugshot, etc. Certainly, the average criminal defendant who is placed under arrest, either by surrender or otherwise at the Fulton County Jail, typically faces a wait time of several hours, 8 hours in many cases, is what we've been able to gather from certainly several criminal defense attorneys who routinely work out of the Fulton County Jail. So the fact that this is being done so efficiently, it kind of speaks for itself in terms of how the former president is being treated. In addition to that, look, average criminal defendants don't get escorted by Secret Service agents, right? So, there's a whole other level of protocol that's involved in all this. Another unique feature of how this is all happening is that bond has bond arrangements have already been reached for most of these defendants. And I should point out that Harrison Floyd, who's the leader of the organization Black Voices for Trump, is actually being held. And there's some speculation as to why. But, of course, 11 others have already turned themselves out on bond. And by and large, bond agreements have been reached for most of these 19 defendants. And all of them are charged under Georgia's RICO Act. So that's something, if you get out and you talk to criminal defense attorneys, or even prosecutors for that matter, but particularly criminal defense attorneys who routinely argue cases in Fulton County Court, routinely deal with clients at the Fulton County Jail, bond on RICO charges is often unheard of in many of these cases. For instance, in YSL, majority of the defendants did not have bond. Here, obviously a very, very different situation. So it will be interesting to see how the process unfolds. And if there is a mugshot taken, there's no reason to believe that there wouldn't be, because we've seen the mugshots released for the other defendants who have surrendered themselves. That would remain to be seen, but it's not necessarily something that would have to come from the sheriff. We're talking a bit about the expeditious nature of this process, not just the booking, but now we've got this news of this speedy trial request granted, that the trial has now been moved up to October 23rd, at least, for now. And that's all because of the motion for a speedy trial that was filed by the legal team for Kenneth Chesbrough, one of the attorneys for the former president. And, his team filed that motion. The judge said, "Hey, okay, October 23rd." I'm paraphrasing. We can do the trial. And District Attorney Fonnie Willis didn't have to agree, but she did. She said, "Okay, we can do October 23rd." Clearly, she was ready after a 2-year-long investigation. She was ready to go and ready to deal with the trial that was pushed months ahead of time. But it's something that's going to be interesting to see is how this is going to impact all the other co-defendants, because what that means is, because of this motion by one defendant, now all 18, or 19 I should say, the 18 others, would potentially be on trial October 23rd. Do I believe at the end of the day that's going to happen? Well, I would anticipate to see motions filed for severance, so that the other defendants can be disassociated from Kenneth Chesbrough. If he wants to have his trial start October 23rd, then what can happen is that he or the other co-defendants can file for a motion for severance, so that the trials can be held separately for the other defendants.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, that makes sense that we're here tracking all this. The legality component of this is so complex, and it's moving so fast, which makes it even more difficult. We're keeping our eyes peeled right here on this motorcade as it moves up what looks like I-85, I would say. Moving up I-85, not a single car on that highway going northbound, Tracy.
Well, and this is what happens whenever we have a president come to town. You have law enforcement agencies move ahead of that motorcade, and they're blocking off entrances onto the freeway so they can have a free and clear route. And that is clearly what we've seen right here in order to make that process go that much faster. So they really have the entire freeway at their disposal. So we do have reporters all across the metro right now covering this story. Let's head out to Atlanta News First reporter and anchor Tori Cooper at the Rice Street Jail. And Tori, you should expect to see the former president's motorcade in a matter of minutes. They are moving quickly down the interstate.
And all eyes will be watching Atlanta when that happens, Tracy. This is really the crowd where everyone is standing right now over here. This is where we had a chance to talk with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came from the front entrance of the Fulton County Jail to address the media and everybody who has been here to spectate what is now turned into a historical event. Now, this is something we've been talking about, and I had a chance to ask Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been a long supporter of the former president. I've had a chance to speak with her about why she was here and if she's been in communication with the former president, and she said that she's been in constant communication with the former president today, and that he's feeling outraged and that he is a victim of the weaponized government here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I did also ask her about whether or not she heard any of the information as far as DA Fani Willis getting that court filing approved by Judge McAfee. And she says, my message to Fani Willis today is that I'm going to make sure that she loses her job, and they're going to conduct an investigation through the Judiciary Committee. Here's what she said when we asked her some other questions.
This is a devastating day for America. Georgia is embarrassed and ashamed of this Fulton County DA that's abusing her office to go after and arrest the president, the former president of the United States, which is Joe Biden's top political opponent.
Now, just a few other key points I want to mention that came out of that interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said that the charges in the indictment are fake charges against former President Donald Trump. And she says that right now they're just making sure that they can show support for the former president. And lastly, when she was walking away, I said, is former President Donald Trump going to address the media out here at all? And she says he is going to address the media. Now, whether or not that's confirmed, we are going to have to work on that. But those are words from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I will be standing there to see if the former president is going to address the media as he enters or leaves the Fulton County Jail. Reporting live from the Fulton County Jail tonight, I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
All right, Tori, thank you. And you're not the only one out there. Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon has been out there as well since noon today, and it has only gotten more and more chaotic leading up to this moment right here. I want to bring in Doug right now. Doug, talk to us. What's that scene like as the president now probably less than 10 minutes from your location?
Right. Yeah, Alan, we've got the stream pulled up right here, and we are watching just like everybody else for that motorcade to pull up here to the Rice Street entrance of the Fulton County Jail. As we have learned a little bit more about the president's whereabouts, we learned he was getting off the plane. And we're learning now he's just about 10 minutes away now here from the jail. Things have gotten, really quite pensive and tense out here. A lot of the crowd at every movement, every single pair of cop cars that is coming up through the Rice Street entrance, everyone kind of pauses and takes out their phones and gets their cameras ready. What will happen is the motorcade will come up this street, which is blocked off on both ends here to allow for just the people who are here up until they blocked it off about 2 hours ago. He will go in through this main entrance and go back this road here to the jail, where he will, again, as Joy has been saying, have somewhat of an expedited process as compared to other detainees here at the jail. And keep in mind, guys, that the president is actually early. The deadline for them to turn themselves in, all 19 defendants here in this case, is tomorrow at noon. And there are still outstanding defendants who have yet to do this. Of course, the former president will be the highest profile by far, but this is still not quite over. We're going to be back out at the jail tomorrow to see which of these remaining defendants turn themselves in, and quite frankly, to see if anyone misses that noon deadline. We, of course, learned today also that October 23rd will be the date for that trial. That is far earlier than the originally proposed date of March, just before the presidential primary. There is some commotion down the other end of Rice Street here. As I said, guys, this is a very touch and go situation as everybody watches the same live stream waiting for this motorcade to arrive here. And of course, we will keep you updated throughout the evening, before, during, and after the former president arrives here at Rice Street. But we'll send it back to the studio for now and keep you updated. I expect we'll see you in a couple minutes.
Yeah, it won't be long now. The motorcade is passing the Atlanta University Center, just passed by Morehouse College and the stadium there. So they are really in the heart of Atlanta. And again, all the streets are cleared in order to make this process go as quickly as possible. Again, expected to not take very long from touchdown till when there's wheels up on the former president's plane. Only expected to take about an hour and a half, probably less than 2 hours altogether.
Yeah. And this is something that's been orchestrated months and months out. As soon as his team, as soon as Secret Service knew he would be making a trip to Atlanta, everything started to go into action as far as the preparations to get this ready, to keep the president protected, to keep everybody involved protected, including all of those protesters and supporters who are awaiting his arrival at the Fulton County Jail. By my clock, it's 7:29, just about to be 7:30. He said he would be turning himself in, surrendering at the jail at 7:30. So we are in the final minutes here. Atlanta News First is going to continue to bring you this live coverage as it unfolds, as we track the former president making his way to the Fulton County Jail. Something else I want to say, Tracy, as we mentioned the jail, he's about to arrive there. Rice Street has been in the spotlight here for years and years, for all the wrong reasons. They're currently under investigation by the Department of Justice for the conditions inside the jail, the same conditions the former president is about to step into here in the next 5 minutes, I should say, because they are moving very quickly right through downtown Atlanta. And there have been 7 deaths in the jail. Just this year alone, upwards of 30 deaths in the jail in the last 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years, since 2018, 2019. And that has been a target for the former president. He's criticized the district attorney. He's criticized the sheriff himself. He's criticized the sheriff's office. And now here he is about to be a part of that system, a part of that gear that he has been taking shots at here since he was indicted.
Well, for as much as he actually can be,
exactly.
Because, you know, the jail will essentially be closed off and cordoned off, and only the necessary people will be there. He's not going to see the roughest part of that jail by any means, of course. But look, from this shot here on the ground, we can see that motorcade passing through, a number of people holding their phones up, trying to get some quick shots. A lot of people watching this as it unfolds. Again, history being made where we have a former president coming to Metro Atlanta, turning himself into the jail, facing charges, a number of charges for allegedly trying to overturn an election here in our state. We have a number of crew members working on this story, including Chief Investigator Brendan Keith, who's been looking into this. And Brendan, I know this is just fascinating, you know, to see history unfold like this. Some of your thoughts as you watch this.
You know, this hits differently for us because we live here. This is our community. And now you see the former president, the 45th president of the United States, driving down the streets we drive to turn himself into jail. And while they've said that he's going to be treated like any other defendant, obviously not every other defendant has Secret Service protection. He's entitled to lifetime Secret Service protection. So instead of a typical defendant being brought to the jail in a police car, this defendant, the 45th president of the United States, is being brought to jail with a police escort, with those highways shut down, with the road shut down. And so he's very close to the jail now. And what you're going to see, we're not going to see the process right now because this isn't a court hearing. That's another date. Here he is turning into the jail right now. This is the entrance of the jail. And he's going to essentially have his height taken, his weight taken. They'll write down his hair and eye color. Then what they'll do is they'll electronically fingerprint him with it's like sort of a piece of glass scanner, not ink. Then his mugshot will be taken, and we will get that because under the Open Records Act, it's public record in Georgia.
All right, let's head out to Atlanta News First. Patrick Quinn, he's on the ground. He's also been covering this story and a number of those issues at the Rice Street Jail. Patrick, can you hear us?
Right, he has traveling press within the...
I am here right here, and we're right along Jefferson Street, and this is the large motorcade that we saw on the ground when the former president landed at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. They are now going through the Jefferson Street entrance of the Fulton County Jail. This is the intake center, the primary area where defendants go to start the booking process, and we saw roughly 30 or so motorcycles at the start of this motorcade, followed by many more SUVs. And presumably the former president is now heading into the jail right now where he will begin that booking process. But it all just happened here within the last 20 seconds. You just watched it. There has been a ton of security on the ground here. Secret Service, plenty of deputies from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, all anticipating this moment. And it has only increased in security as that motorcade got closer and closer to the Fulton County Jail, and now the former president is headed inside. We just saw him go through the gates here, and he will begin that booking process, and we'll be standing right here watching to see how long this takes. Again, as you guys have mentioned, while the sheriff Pat Labatt said he will get this standard booking process, his experience inside the jail will be anything but standard compared to the average inmate, where the average stay is 65 days. We're expecting the former president to be in and out as part of this expedited booking process within a matter of probably under an hour. They have certainly controlled the area to allow this to be as quick and seamless as a process as possible. But again, we just saw the former president in his motorcade go into the Fulton County Jail at the Jefferson Street entrance. This is the intake center, just within the last minute or so.
And Patrick, I'm not sure if you can see from your vantage point, just kind of looking from the Atlanta News First Chopper's vantage point, I see a number of buses kind of lined up, and we know that street has been blocked off. There's a number of security precautions that have been taken. Any idea of the reason for the buses kind of lined up right where the motorcade is pulled up?
Right, well, one side is completely blocked off by that bus that you're seeing. We saw that move in roughly 2 hours ago to completely block traffic one direction here on Jefferson Street. The other side, there is a dump truck that is partially blocking traffic, and to be honest, it's really hot out here, so we left probably about 2 hours to get some Gatorade at a nearby gas station, and when we came back, we were met by Secret Service, and initially they said we weren't allowed back in. Once we explained that we were media, they did allow us to come back to our gear, and they said starting at 5 o'clock this evening, that's when they really stopped any formal traffic going through this area, and they were certainly ramped up their security measures. So Secret Service is here, plenty of deputies from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure this presence will remain as long as it takes for the former president to go through that booking process.
All right, Patrick, thank you. We know Rice Street blocked off on kind of both sides. They essentially have that location locked down. And we're referencing kind of the intake area where Donald Trump is expected to walk into. So we're watching that as well. Let's head back out to Atlanta News First. Attorney and anchor Joylem Nakrin. And as you're watching this too, again, a fairly quick process, but what are your thoughts as you see this all unfold, Joy?
Just thinking, what if highways were shut down for every other criminal defendant, right? I mean, you know, it's certainly, it's hard to argue that the former president is being treated as other criminal defendants would be. I mean, certainly there are arguments as to why he should be treated differently for, you know, obvious safety concerns. But I'm very curious to see how quickly this happens. Also very interesting that, you know, while we know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how Kenneth Chesebro successfully motioned for a speedy trial. You know, the judge proposed a date. Fulton County District Attorney Bonnie Willis approved of that date. You know, it was actually the former President Trump who filed a motion in opposition to that. You know, to push it back, essentially. Not okay to start trial October 23rd. So that's very interesting. You know, it will be interesting to see what happens next, if there's a motion for him to sever his case from the others, or at least to sever Kenneth Chesebro's case from the others. But it signals that perhaps Trump or his legal team is not ready to go to trial on October 23rd. But it is also worth noting that we did learn this morning that the former president had replaced his lead defense attorney here in Georgia. And I say here in Georgia because, remember, he's got now 4 criminal cases against him. 1 is in Georgia. Drew Findling was the lead criminal defense attorney for him here in Fulton County. But we learned this morning that Drew Findling has now been replaced with Steve Sadow, who is, you know, well known for you know, not only white collar defense, but some very high profile criminal defense cases. Clients like Usher, Rick Ross, T.I., Gunna. And Gunna, that's particularly noteworthy because, again, that was in the YSL case, you know, another RICO case, and apparently they were able to reach a plea deal in December. And here we've got the former president facing charges of violating Georgia's RICO statute, among other things. So, there's nothing really about this that is typical. I mean, this whole thing is historic. So we're watching along with really the entire nation and perhaps even the world to see what happens next.
We are, Joy. History is developing before our very eyes in real time right here in Atlanta. I want to bring in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, who has been, of course, keeping our eyes on this entire thing as it unfolds. Brendan, he's about to step foot, I guess, into custody.
He's in there right now. You could assume he's both simultaneously in the custody of the U.S. Secret Service, because he never leaves the custody of the U.S. Secret Service for the rest of his natural life, so long as he wants to have Secret Service protection. But right now, he's also in the custody of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and its deputies. Setting the scene here for you, the reason the shot looks sort of a little washed out is because the helicopter is at distance. I can tell you, having been a reporter flying left seat for 5 years in a news chopper, that essentially this is almost the full extent of the zoom lens, which is 72x. That's how far away the chopper has to be. Why? Because right now there's a TFR, that's a temporary flight restriction, around the jail. It is a 1 nautical mile radius around the jail to an altitude of 1,000 feet. That's to prevent drones, even our drone. We actually asked if we could fly. The FAA said no at this point. And so that's what you're...
And it looks like we might have just lost the signal from that chopper, Brendan, but we are listening to former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's speaking about all this. Let's listen in right now.
Focus on Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman will be held accountable.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Walk it.
Yeah. All right.
She just wrapped up there. I believe, Tori, can Tori hear us? Can Tori Cooper hear us out there? Maybe she can provide us with a little bit of what the mayor just said, the former mayor.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Tori, walk us through. What did she say?
That was former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who we just heard from. Luckily, I've had a chance to speak with her before. She just did an interview with someone else. I said, what is your reaction to today? She says, really, this is not a day anyone wants to see. But we had several people shouting, and she was trying to continue her comments. But what she did want to make sure that people were hearing was that this is a sad day in America that no one wants to see. But she was happy to see that people are doing what they can to hold others accountable. She did say that this is a sad day overall, and then she quickly carried on as many people just started to surround her. So that was the very latest from former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, saying this is a sad day, but she's happy to see that those are being held accountable for their actions.
Interesting to see the former mayor out there. Tori, thank you. She had been obviously a very vocal critic of former President Donald Trump during his presidency as she tried to lead the city. She led the city here in Atlanta through the pandemic. We want to go back out to Doug Reardon, who, Doug, just moments ago, you probably had a chance to see the former president pass by you in the motorcade there. What else is going on from your vantage point?
Yeah, well, guys, we actually didn't get to see the former president pass by, and the reason for that is because we had suspected this from the very beginning of the day, and quite frankly, why we put Patrick Quinn over on the Jefferson side of the street. There are two ways to get into this jail. You can come here to the main entrance on Rice Street, or you can go to the Jefferson Street entrance, which is actually the designated intake side, where they would bring anyone who they were transporting in a police vehicle through to get their booking and processing done. So for us today, it was really the flip of a coin. Which entrance was he going to show up to? And for the other roughly dozen defendants that have turned themselves in this case, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Some have come here to Rice Street, some have gone over to the Jefferson intake entrance, and honestly, we are still going to stay here because there's a very good chance that he could come out this Rice Street exit. The other day, in fact, one defendant, Rudy Giuliani, went in here and came back out this way and did a press conference. And so there's really no telling two things. One, which exit or entrance, I suppose, the former president will come out of. And also, still to be determined is whether or not he is going to address the media here, and quite a good bit of his supporters as well. A little bit of disappointment in the crowd here upon learning that the former president had already entered the jail and hadn't passed by this crowd here on Rice Street. And so, again, we don't know how long this will take. We know it will be an expedited process. As Joy mentioned, that is not typical for detainees here at the jail. It can be sometimes an hours-long process, but we expect that for the former president, this will be a matter of a couple of minutes to get him fingerprinted, booked, processed, and get his mugshot taken. As I heard Brendan mention earlier as well, we are going to be able to bring you that mugshot tonight. We're going to have coverage of, we're going to have it in our coverage. I have to give Fulton County Sheriff's Office some credit here. They have been very quick in getting these mugshots out of these defendants once they have been taken and they are available to us. We have pretty much gotten them right away. So we expect to have that, I would say, within the next couple of hours. Again, a very historic moment here today. It is perhaps for some folks out here going to be a little bit jarring to see a mugshot of a former president, and certainly one who is so very much beloved by his supporters. We asked a lot of people out here today, how does it make you feel to know that he is going to be in this jail, which really has a reputation for being quite run down and deadly in some cases. And they said it makes them sad, it makes them angry, a wide range of responses, but those were really the two that we got in talking to a lot of the former president's supporters out here. And of course, none of his supporters wanted to see him in this position anyways. Many of them are still maintaining, even in front of the camera, that these charges are false, that they should have never been brought against the former president and the 18 others charged in this case. Even Steve Sadow, who is the new attorney for the former president, who was just brought on this morning after he parted ways with his defense team that's been with him for almost 2 years, he vehemently said that the former president is innocent on all charges, and even hinted at the fact that they may try to get these charges dismissed. He said, if not, at least we want an unbiased, open-minded jury trial. And certainly, we even have more indication today that that may be happening sooner than we thought. We know that District Attorney Fonnie Willis had said she had wanted to get this done as soon as she could possibly get it done. She had originally asked for it to be scheduled just 8 days before the primary here coming up in the spring of this year. But now we know that she is trying to get it done in October. I remember the night that she brought these charges, someone had asked her in a press conference, you're the fourth person to charge the former president. Do you want to be the first to try him? She said, we really have no illusions about being the first, second, third, or fourth. We just want to get it done. And so we are inching closer to that portion of this saga, guys, and we'll of course keep you updated. Again, the former president very well could come out this exit, so we'll let you know. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now, though.
Yeah, no, we've got you and a whole team of reporters all over that jail. If there is any motion, we will have it for sure. Now, as we go back out to the Atlanta News First chopper flying over that intake portion of the Fulton County Jail, we're keeping our eyes on the president. That timeline's going to move very quickly, in and out, and then back to the airport. Once that motorcade starts moving, once the president exits the jail, Atlanta News First will have that right here live, as you just heard Doug Reardon talk about. That mugshot that the Fulton County Sheriff has said will be taken. We're going to have that too right here on Atlanta News First. Again, everybody who has turned themselves into the jail so far, in all 18 of these co-defendants, I should say, everyone who's turned themselves in so far has had a mugshot taken. I want to bring back in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe. Brendan, you say you've got new information regarding the president's bond. Is that what you said?
That's right. We do know that the president's bond has been set at $200,000. That was already pre-negotiated. So he's going to be released tonight, go back to the airport, and fly out on his 757. But how is he posting that bond? He has the option to post it as cash, but we have confirmed he's using a local bail bond service, just like Rudy Giuliani did yesterday. Rudy Giuliani used a second chance bail bonds. We have confirmed here at Atlanta News First that Donald Trump is using Foster bail bonds. Foster bail bonds confirmed to us that they are going to be providing bond for the president. Now, some people might say, well, wait, he's a billionaire. He says he's a billionaire. Why does he need to borrow money to post bond? This is actually a misnomer. People post bond all the time this way, even if they have the money. Because if I told you you could post $20,000 or $30,000 instead of $200,000, which would you choose to put up? And that's what a bail bondsman does. You pay them 10 to 15%. They take the risk, they put up the bond, and then they get the money back when you show up to court, so you don't have to park $200,000 with the court. So we've confirmed that he is using, the former president, a local bail bond service, Foster bail bonds. And one more note, we obviously are checking constantly. I'm doing it right now. I am checking at this very moment on my phone as I'm talking to you in the studio over and over, refreshing the jail's website for the inmate search. Apparently every other reporter and assignment desk in America is doing the same thing because it says connection timed out. Essentially, Donald Trump has crashed the Fulton County Jail computer system in terms of searching for inmates. This is so we could see whether he has actually been booked in to the jail, and that right now has crashed. We'll keep checking it, of course, but as of right now, the system is simply overloaded with everybody trying to see the details of the 45th President of the United States checked into the jail.
Keep hitting refresh, Brendan. We know you're going to we know you're going to stay on it. All right, we want to head back out to the location right out in front of the Fulton County Jail, to Chelsea Beimfohr, where she is out there amongst a number of people who are out in support of former President Donald Trump, and some people who are actively voicing their disdain in many ways for District Attorney Fani Willis. What are you seeing out there, Chelsea?
Yeah, we're on Rice Street, the backside of the jail, so we weren't able to see the motorcade, but you can see all of the people that are gathered here down the block. It's a mix of media from across the state, across the country, and also supporters and protesters that showed up for Donald Trump's booking today. We've been speaking to a number of people today. We spoke with many supporters, some that even traveled from out of state to be here. They told us things like it's a disgrace what the Democrats are doing to the former president. Other people told us this indictment doesn't change anything for them. If Donald Trump becomes the Republican nominee, they'll still vote for him. And then we've also seen some protesters out here today. They were a little bit less vocal, but still came out here holding signs saying, lock him up. We heard some of those chants as the motorcade was coming into the jail. Again, from back here, we couldn't see it, but we could hear some of the sirens. We could hear an Atlanta police helicopter that was circling. We also saw former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has been in and out of the White House over the last couple years, serving in different positions. We know she was appointed a month ago to Biden's Export Council, which advises on trade, and so it appeared she was here to speak with a network and do an interview after she left their trailer. She came out and held a short press conference with local media. I know Tori Cooper was over there. I couldn't quite hear what Keisha Lance Bottoms was saying, but I'm sure we'll have that playing for you guys again today. We've also seen Marjorie Taylor Greene out here earlier as well. All right, we're going to send it back to you guys, and we'll finish up a little bit later. Thanks.
All right, Chelsea, I know it's starting to get a little bit louder, and no doubt it will get even louder once Donald Trump leaves the jail there. And we did get some new information. This from CNN. They're reporting that the former president has been placed under arrest and booked at the Fulton County Jail. And part of those records that Brendan was talking about, too, of course, not only the mugshot, the fingerprinting, they also take down any distinctive marks you may have or anything that makes you, the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, those kind of things. And according to CNN, the record shows that Donald Trump is 6 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 215 pounds, and listed as having blue eyes and blonde or strawberry hair. So that is all part of that booking process that he's undergoing right now. And of course, the fingerprints and the mugshot that we do expect to see very soon. But again, this all happening very rapidly. And as we take a live look right now in front of the Rice Street Jail, Alan, I was asking reporter Patrick Quinn on the ground, and he has a very different vantage point than we do. We have the privilege of being able to see things from the Atlanta News First chopper. I do believe all those Fulton County detention buses are all lined up to block the view of anyone who may be at street level. Because, of course, just like with this chopper, how we're zooming in from here, people from the street can kind of zoom in and possibly get, a number of photos, and they don't want that to happen in this particular case. So I have a good feeling that that's why all those buses are lined up the way they are.
Yeah, this is not a spectacle from the perspective of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and the jail and the district attorney. This is a legal process. They are doing this following the rule books, following the legal process as laid out. And so for them, number one priority is to ensure that the former president is protected and safe as he makes his way from Hartsfield to the jail. And then eventually, we're going to give it to you live when he goes from the jail back to Hartsfield. Patrick Quinn, one of our reporters, one of our Atlanta News First reporters who has been out there all evening here, he's got a better perspective than we do. He's right outside of one of those entrances. I believe it's the entrance where the former president actually went into the jail. His motorcade drove right by. Patrick, you know, this has got to be the climax for what has been weeks of anticipation. About, I guess, 12 days since the indictment was actually announced. Here comes the former president. What is it like out there on the ground from your perspective?
Alan, I got to admit, it was certainly surreal to watch this motorcade just go by us roughly 5 feet from where I'm standing. They went in at 7:32, so he has been inside the Fulton County Jail now for roughly 23 minutes or so. We're starting to hear a little bit more commotion, so maybe that is a sign that he is on his way out. Again, he has just been in there.
Patrick, I want to interrupt you really quickly here. CNN reporting, and this really lines up with the motorcade that we see pulling off right now. According to CNN, the former president has completed the booking process, and according to jail records, he has been released on bond. Of course, he agreed to a $200,000 bond, posted some 10%, so about $20,000. So it appears as though that process has already started to wrap up. We see the motorcade leaving the Rice Street Jail now.
Less than 30 minutes, in and out in less than 30 minutes. You talk about an expedited process. You talk about efficiency as one of your top priorities here. This is what they just got done. And now, as planned, as we all anticipated, no surprise here, the former president is in that motorcade, passing right by our reporter, Patrick Quinn. This is a live video from his camera. We were just talking to him. This is what he saw once again, less than 5 feet from where he's standing. This motorcade heading right back to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where they will be. So we've got Atlanta News First reporter Adam Murphy, who's actually on the ground watching as this motorcade passes. Adam, talk to us. What's the scene out there? I'm sure it's a little hectic.
It certainly is, Alan. We're on Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard. Look at this. All right, so you see all the law enforcement officers on their motorcycles. Here comes the motorcade, it appears. They're heading south down Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard. We're at Donnelly Hollowell as well, and this road has been blocked off for some time. Now look. Okay, let's see what happens.
And you could hear a little bit of harsh language there as some of those motorcade vehicles pass by. Kelsey in the back, can you let us know if that language dies down? In the meantime, we're going to keep that. All right, we're going to go back to Adam. It sounds like they've stopped. Adam, can you hear me? Yes, please.
We're back out here. Yes, I got you, Alan. Okay, so you're looking right now at Joseph E. Lowry. All right, this has been blocked. These vehicles are heading south towards the interstate. You can see the law enforcement vehicles coming through. A lot of people out here as well. There you go. The motorcade moving through right now. Looking to see if by chance we see the former president. There's a lot of people out here. And they came through going north on this stretch of roadway not even about 20 minutes ago. So very quick process, because we saw the motorcade coming through this area going north about 20 minutes ago, and now they're headed south, back towards the interstate, back towards the airport. And you can see Georgia State Patrol, heavy police presence. No one traveling down this stretch of roadway. A lot of people have been out here also watching. I mean, we've heard people on both sides of the president commenting, some in favor, some against. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit about that, but we are here in the Bankhead area. It looks like we are going to get the all clear here shortly, guys, where they will reopen Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard at Donnelly Hollowell in the Bankhead area. But you did see live right here on Atlanta News First, the former president's motorcade moving south back towards the airport. We'll send it to you guys.
We sure did, Adam. And now, as you wrap up there, we've got our Atlanta News First chopper back live over that motorcade. What you're going to see now is they make their way to the airport, and just based on normal timing with a motorcade like that for the former president, they'll be back in Hartsfield-Jackson likely before 8:15. I would say at the latest 8:15, as they move at a high speed directly back to Trump Force One, as he's coined his plane, the Boeing there, Trump Force One. So you heard Adam talking about supporters and protesters for the former president. This man right now is leading the Republican field with, in the latest polls, about a 40% lead over the second place, which is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and he's got a 62% control of likely Republican voters for the Republican nomination for president. So this goes beyond just politics, though, and it looks like we might have lost the signal there from the Atlanta News First chopper. We're going to work to get that back. This is another angle of the jail. I promise you right now, we are working to get that shot of the motorcade back. Stay with us here as we get that. But like I was saying, this is a man who is leading the Republican field right now, and a lot of Republicans across the country do believe that these charges, these investigations, these indictments are a hoax. They do not believe they are real. And then you have the other side of things. Here's the motorcade back, just as I promised. You have to understand that we are actually, I believe we're maybe going to get a look inside the motorcade. Is that what I just heard? And here we go. So this is a look from the motorcade as it moves through the streets of downtown Atlanta. This looks like towards the middle or the back of that motorcade where the former president is traveling in one of those first Cadillacs, or the first SUVs, I should say, behind that police escort, that large number of motorcycles from corresponding agencies from around the area, likely a lot of Fulton County Sheriff's Office deputies. I'm sure they're getting help from the Atlanta Police Department as well. But you guys right now are living in history as residents of Atlanta, residents of Georgia, as we get a look, Tracy, from literally inside the motorcade where the former president is traveling back to the airport.
There are members of the press that are traveling with the former president, and that's how we're able to get this very unique perspective here. And Alan, to your point of what you were talking about in terms of the Republican Party really essentially being Donald Trump's party, you know, a number of candidates last night at the debate said they would still, actually a majority, all but two, said that they would still back Donald Trump, even if he's convicted. And of course, this here in Georgia, the fourth indictment for the former president. But the question now is, as the former president heads back to Trump Force One at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, what happens next? So the booking process has already happened. Heading back to New Jersey, heading back to his Bedminster Golf Club there. He has an estate there that he used as kind of a second home during the presidency. From what we are told, no events expected at his club upon his return. But you know what? He is Donald Trump, and Donald Trump does what Donald Trump does. But part of this process, he has been barred from communicating or using social media to target any of the co-defendants. So no doubt the judge, many judges will be watching that to make sure that does not happen, that there are no threats or veiled threats. But at this point, we are still waiting for, possible anything else that could happen in this case. A judge could choose to arraign, the other defendants, the other 18 defendants, or possibly allow them to waive their arraignments altogether. We will see what happens from here. We are still waiting for a number of co-defendants to turn themselves in.
And you mentioned that arraignment. You're absolutely right. The judge could choose to waive that arraignment for some or all of those co-defendants. But at the same time, this could be a virtual arraignment. He could decide, I want to have this arraignment, Judge Scott McAfee. I want to have the arraignment, I should say. But you don't have to actually come here. You can do it virtually, which is something I'm sure if that arraignment is going to happen, these co-defendants are likely going to aim for sure. But let's bring in somebody who knows, a lot more about this legal component of this than I do. Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakrin, who's been following this case for a while now. So Joy, we're watching from inside the motorcade on one side of our screen. We're watching from the Atlanta News First chopper on the other side of our screen. The president's going to be back at Hartsfield in the next 12 minutes here, but this is far from over. There's no true deadline on when this is going to end. What comes next?
Yeah, you're right. It's far from over. And I also want to just let our viewers know I have with me right now criminal defense attorney J. Edward Shipp, who is very, very familiar with this process, has numerous clients that he's represented at the Fulton County Courthouse, that he's, had to help along through the booking process at the Fulton County Jail. You're talking a little bit about the arraignment process, which is where the charges are formally read and the defendant actually enters their plea, guilty, not guilty. But I do want to point out, you talked about the possibility of a virtual arraignment. There's also the possibility that a defendant can waive an arraignment altogether and do away with that process. But the major headline, I think, regarding the whole trial process right now is just that at this moment, a trial date has now been moved way up. It's been set for October 23rd. And the reason for that is that one of the 19 defendants, Kenneth Chesebro, a former Trump attorney, he filed a motion for a speedy trial. The court came up with this October 23rd date. District Attorney Fani Willis said, okay, essentially. She signed off on it, clearly was ready to go after her 2-year-long investigation. So the question is, what happens next? Because are all 19 defendants ready to go to trial October 23rd? Well, it seems that we would anticipate seeing some motions for severance so that these defendants can have their trials separate from Kenneth Chesebro if he wants to go ahead and start October 23rd. But Jay, I mean, you're very familiar with this process. What do you think? What do you think we're going to see here, and what happens next?
We're most likely going to see a motion to sever trial, just because it is a expedited timeline that has been given now. We're showing that he's asking for it to happen October the 23rd by the order of Judge McAfee, and Trump has already said, okay, wait a minute, let's put the brakes on that. I don't want to have my trial that early. I mean, as we talked about many times, he is the master of, prolonging the process, whether it be through appeals, whether it be through whatever legal maneuvers he may try to use. And having a trial on October the 23rd, that's just not going to happen for former President Trump. So essentially, Attorney Chesebro has basically severed his trial from the rest of those trials because there will be a severance motion filed, most likely by President Trump's former President Trump's new counsel, saying, hey, this timeline is way too quick. I've just been hired onto this case. We're going to need more time, so we're going to ask that we be severed from the other co-defendants. Therefore, we would need a little bit more time to get back to our January timeline.
Now, in the short term, we know that all 19 defendants were given until tomorrow at noon to turn themselves in. All but 7 have done so. Obviously, that's what we just saw the former president do, is turn himself in and surrender himself to arrest and the booking process. 7 others haven't. Why not? Why do you think?
That could be a number of factors. It could be because some of them don't have an attorney set up yet. It could be that some of them are waiting it out to just see how this plays out. We've seen some co-defendants in other cases balk at subpoenas, so it could be one of those situations where they're just going to say, let's see how far they really will take it. Will they actually send someone to arrest me? But more likely than not, it's probably that the funds have run dry, the legal fund have run dry, so they're looking for someone who can take on this case effectively and for a price that may be in their budget. And for some of these lower level defendants, they may not have enough resources to pay for the type of lawyer that they would need to deal with these charges.
And speaking of that, I want to ask you, why is it that majority of these defendants have, reached bond agreements, but then we've seen that Harrison Floyd did not and is going to apparently spend the night in jail. Correct me if you know something I don't. He is a leader of the organization Black Voices for Trump. What would be the reasoning for that?
He could be waiting out to see if he could get a prelim hearing, and once you have a preliminary hearing, that does give you kind of a chance to see what the evidence is that is actually holding you in jail. So he could be being used as almost a pawn of sorts to kind of get a preview of the evidence that District Attorney Willis has against these co-defendants, and could be, proverbially falling on the sword to see, okay, let's see what type of evidence do they really have other than this indictment that, was so well written.
All right. Yeah, something we're going to keep following. There's so many new developments here. Alan and Tracy, back to you.
All right, Joy, thank you. One quick bit of new information. According to CNN, a mugshot was taken of Donald Trump. That's according to Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt. So we do expect to see that released relatively soon. It certainly has been for previous co-defendants. We want to bring in Atlanta News First investigative reporter Andy Perotti to talk a little bit more about, because a co-defendant in this case, Andy, of course, demanding a speedy trial, but explain a little bit more about that. And, you know, some might say for many defendants, that does not happen. A speedy trial, not the case.
Especially not in Fulton County. Just hours ago, the judge overseeing this case, Scott McAfee, he agreed with one of the defendants' requests for a speedy trial. That defendant is Kenneth Chesborough. He's an attorney accused in the alleged scheme to alter the 2020 election results in Georgia. In response to that request, the DA said she's ready. And she filed a motion asking the judge to set a trial date for all of the defendants, including President Trump. That's 60 days from today. That is a really quick turnaround for the DA's office and for all 19 defendants to get this trial for all of them to be ready during a short period of time. If this happens, this would fly in the face of thousands of people in the county who have been waiting for their court date for years. Here's some context. Just yesterday, I was in Judge Scott McAfee's courtroom yesterday. He is presiding over a murder case where a guy has been accused of murdering 3 people. That individual has been inside the Fulton County Jail 10 years waiting for his trial date, and his trial just started this week. Just an extraordinary amount of time that if this trial date is set. Now, it is important to note that the attorney for Trump's attorney, has filed a motion opposing that 60-day trial date in 60 days, October 23rd. And he's also asked to be severed from the case. That means he wants his case tried separately from all the other defendants' cases. That motion has not been brought up yet, but you can expect that other defendants are likely going to make similar requests, trying to sever their case from so that they're all not tried at the same time. And to add some additional perspective of why this is so extraordinary for this case to potentially be tried in 60 days, at 13,000 people right now in Georgia, or as of last year, were waiting for their case to be even presented to a grand jury, guys.
All right, Andy, thank you. I'm going to go out to Atlanta News First reporter Brittany Ford, who is still at the airport. There goes that motorcade. Brittany, talk to us.
Well, Alan, yeah, it's all happening right now as we speak. Former President Donald Trump from the Fulton County Jail, where he's been booked and processed, back to Hartsville Jackson. You can see again the multiple SUVs and motorcade that has now come from the Fulton County Jail. And this has been just such a quick moving process, just giving you a timeline of what's happened here so far. The former president arrived here at Hartsville Jackson around 7:05. There was about a 10-minute deplaning process where we saw him give the infamous thumbs up, got off the plane, and then that motorcade has been in action to the Fulton County Jail. Now, just weeks of anticipation leading up to what has been nearly an hour-long process where he is now headed back onto Trump Force One. But again, you see there just a fleet of buses, the ambulance there. We saw the motorcade come in there. There's still some trucks. Look at this, Georgia State Patrol coming into Hartsville Jackson as we speak with former President Donald Trump, as he has now gone through the process of being booked through the Fulton County Jail. But again, now what happens next is the big question. We do know that he's now going to be back on to the plane. We've seen again the Secret Service, the Georgia State Patrol, Atlanta Police, all a part of these efforts out here that's happening as we speak. But again, we'll keep an eye on the deplaning, or rather when former Donald Trump gets back onto the plane. But this has been such a quick moving process. We're talking about an hour, maybe over an hour, where he's now arrived at Hartsville Jackson, is back to Hartsville Jackson, and is making his way now out of Atlanta. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Brittany, I want to keep you here for a second as we look over Atlanta News First Chopper's live feed here as the president's motorcade just parked out in front of the plane. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. I know you're in a strategic position, as close as Secret Service would let you be, but this is the busiest airport in the world. We all know that. Can you talk to us at all about the heightened security you've been touching on when it comes to ensuring the president can get in and out of a place as jam-packed as Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International from where you are?
Well, Ellen, I can tell you, even before the former president got here, and as he was making his way back from the Fulton County Jail, there was law enforcement agencies, Georgia State Patrol, that was just making loops around the area. They were making loops around the area. They also were making sure that media and reporters were who they say they were. They were coming up to cars. There's a line of cars here lined up again from people that are coming from spectating of what's happening again with the former president taking off now to Hartsville Jackson. State Patrol was coming up to some of these cars and asking, hey, are you who you say you are, and telling some people to move out of the area. So again, there's been just an influx of law enforcement presence here throughout the last couple of hours, even before the former president landed at Hartsville Jackson. They're still lingering now. It doesn't look like there is any, dissipation or the officers look like they're bringing down patrols and all. I think it will be all hands on deck until former President Donald Trump gets on that plane and flies off.
All right, Brittany, thank you. We have a live image right now. This is from the tarmac. You see a Secret Service agent there standing by that black SUV. Based on kind of the activity we're seeing on the tarmac, the former president could possibly make some comments there before he gets back on Trump Force One. We're waiting for that to happen. We see a number of people just kind of lined up and standing there on the tarmac. Of course, he was traveling with a number of members of the press as well. We see some press members on the tarmac just kind of standing and waiting, and some lights set up there. And Alan, that's not something you normally see, so we do expect some activity to happen. And many have speculated that the former president would say something, on the heels of that GOP debate last night and his one-on-one interview with Tucker Carlson last night as well. And of course, him leading the pack of GOP presidential contenders, that more than likely he would use this as an opportunity to campaign. And there's the former president getting out of that SUV right now as he kind of walks a little bit closer to that gaggle of the press corps.
Here it comes.
The president walking up. Let's listen in.
I believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support, and that goes with the other ones too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning, and this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all, and we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think it's very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
And we were just listening to the former president, Donald Trump, speaking regarding these charges he's facing right here in Atlanta at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport. The understanding now is that he will get directly back onto that plane and fly likely back to New Jersey. So what we just heard him say was a repetition of what we've been hearing the former president say now for a while. Ever since the 2020 election took place, he once again called it a rigged and stolen election, something that has been defunct multiple times by multiple different agencies, both of the government at the federal level and the state level. Georgia played a pivotal role in the presidential election in 2020. It, of course, went for Joe Biden. For the first time in over 20 years, a Democrat won the state. He went on to say that it should be a legal right to challenge any election he feels is rigged or stolen. Those two words, rigged, stolen, quoted from the former president. He then went on to name that other players have done it before. Other politicians have done it before, citing Hillary Clinton, citing Stacey Abrams, saying they were able to challenge an election. He should be able to do it too. It is important to note that Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams did not do or have not been charged with what Donald Trump has been charged with doing, not only here at the state level, but at the federal level as well. He called the entire system here dishonest, and he said, quote, "It's a travesty of justice to face the charges that he is facing right now," proclaiming his innocence the entire time through about that 1 minute of conversation. This, again, Tracy, goes far beyond just the political ramifications for competing for the presidency, which is something we see every 4 years. This has extended far beyond.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he would use the words election interference, essentially what he is being charged with, right? Saying, of course, as you mentioned, Alan, he did nothing wrong. Repeatedly saying these words over and over and over again, and talking about other people who have, yes, challenged the election, but did not go so far as to make a call. Of course, that now infamous call to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Is there some way we can find those 11,000 votes? That's obviously where these charges are coming from with DA Fani Willis. We have a recording. We have a number of witnesses to that phone call as well. So this is something that we will continue to talk about, obviously, until this case plays out, as we take a live look right now at Trump Force One on the tarmac as the former president gets ready to depart Georgia in what has been a historic day. We did believe this would happen in less than 2 hours, and here we are only an hour and 20 minutes later, and the president about to go wheels up back to Bedminster, New Jersey, where he will resume his life to the extent that he can. Things will continue to play out here in Georgia. On Monday, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger expected to testify in court and to talk about what happened during that phone call. That will be crucial testimony that here at Atlanta News First we will certainly be watching. So this is by no means over just because the president has been essentially arrested and booked, and just because the former president has been arrested and booked into the Fulton County Jail and released on bond, this is nowhere near over.
It sure isn't. And the next immediate step in this probably 1,000 step process as it plays out for the president moving forward is going to be the mugshot. We have confirmed that a mugshot was taken at the Fulton County Jail 30 minutes ago when the president arrived there, right around 7:35 or so. He had to get into the jail, go through that process. That is what we are awaiting at this moment. And as soon as Atlanta News First gets that, we will provide it to you right here live on air. Now, you just kind of saw the ramp move away from the plane, which leads me to believe that everybody that's supposed to be on the plane is on the plane, and we're going to likely see it start to move here very shortly. And the Atlanta News First chopper changing the angle here, giving you a bird's eye view of Trump Force One. That long motorcade trailing right behind that plane that just escorted him from the plane to the jail and then from the jail to the plane. Brendan Keefe was in here earlier this evening, talking about how the jail website apparently had crashed at that point in time because everybody was looking for the mugshot. We were able to get the booking info from the jail, but as far as an actual picture, that has not happened yet. This is his fourth indictment. This is his fourth go-round through this process, appearing to a jail, appearing to a courthouse to answer to these indictments, both at the state and the federal level. However, Georgia, this is the first time that the former president will have his picture taken inside the jail, and it will be posted to the jail website, posted for the public to see, just like every other inmate that comes through Rice Street. And that is what we're going to provide you as soon as we get that motorcade going into motion right there outside of the plane, like I said, which leads us to believe the plane is going to start taxiing down that runway to get off the ground once again. The president touched down right around 7:02, 7:03 Eastern time here in Atlanta, and here he is back on that plane less than an hour and a half since the president's plane entered Atlanta airspace, and he is already back on that plane. That includes the motorcade traveling from the plane to the jail, the process in the jail, which he was in there less than 30 minutes, and then right back from the jail to the airport. We brought you that coverage from front to back, from before the plane even touched down. Atlanta News First has been bringing you these live images along with our swath of reporters out there at the scene since early this afternoon. Noon time is when our reporters, our evening reporters at least, have been at that jail. We've been covering this for about 10 to 12 days since this indictment was first announced. So right now, again, we are waiting on the president to take off from Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta, flying back to New Jersey. We are waiting on a mugshot from the Fulton County Jail as well. When they post that, we will provide it here on air, online, across all of our platforms, ANF Plus streaming, wherever you're watching us right now. We will show you that mugshot the second we get our hands on it. And Tracy, this process far from over for the president.
Oh, absolutely not. And as you were mentioning, Alan, this has been more than a week that we've been covering this story, really in anticipation, in preparation of this day coming. It was last Monday when those sweeping indictments came down for the president and 18 of his GOP allies. DA Fani Willis, this was a time when certainly up against, you could say in many ways, up against all odds. DA Fani Willis had been working on this case for nearly 2 years, clearly putting all those pieces in place, even with the motion for a speedy trial. Probably likely knew that was going to be one of the things that would happen as well. We have been anticipating this day there at the Fulton County Courthouse and also at the Rice Street Jail. Barricades set up, security put in place, all the players really ready for this day. It is a historic one, and the nation certainly watching us here in Fulton County and Atlanta, Georgia. I want to head back out to our colleague, Joylyn Macron, attorney and anchor, to take a look at. Joy, you heard the former president speak there on the tarmac there, really reciting some of the same words that we have heard over and over again, that stolen, rigged, the election was rigged, election fraud even, using some of the same words that have been levied against him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it makes it very clear that we can expect a not guilty plea from the former president when that arraignment does come. We've been talking about, the arraignment being one of the next steps in this process. And certainly that's what we've seen in the other 3 criminal cases against the former president. I just want to bring in the 2 attorneys that I have on either side of me. I have 2 criminal defense attorneys, both of whom argue cases routinely in Fulton County District Court, and also help clients through the booking process at the Fulton County Jail, which is where we saw the former president surrender himself for the booking process. Here on my left, I guess that's your right, we have J. Edward Shipp. And on my right, your left, we have Suri Chada Jimenez. And Suri is actually working on the YSL case. This is the first time you've been on air for us tonight. You've done it many times in the past. But you actually know the former president's new lead criminal defense attorney, Stephen Sadow. He just announced, just to kind of get our viewers up to speed, Trump announced today that Stephen Sadow, Atlanta-based attorney, is going to be taking over his defense, going to be replacing Drew Feinling. Stephen Sadow, well-known criminal defense attorney. And one of his big clients was part of the YSL case, right?
Absolutely. Like, it looks like former President Trump likes the best of the best. He went from the billionaire lawyer, Mr. Finley, and now he's going to be with Steve Sadow. He's a great attorney, an amazing team. His team drafts some of the best motions. They handle appellate issues on a regular basis. If there's any holes in this indictment, they'll be able to handle it. So he's in great hands.
And talk about the plea deal for a very well-known YSL defendant.
Well, yeah, he actually represented Mr. Sergio Kitchens, also known as Gunna, and his deal got him out. He's home. He has a deal of no cooperation. He's in non-reporting probation. The only problem is that it might have hurt his career a little bit, and I'm sure that Mr. Trump is going to want something that, if it gets resolved through a negotiation, it won't be something that's going to hurt his brand. So I'm sure he's going to fight for that.
Yeah, and both are RICO cases. Want to point out, okay, obviously some activity on the tarmac. Tracy and Alan, I want to send it back into you.
Yeah, Joy, thank you for that perspective. So much legality and terminology for our viewers to understand. That is why we bring in these legal experts to break it down for you. Like you just heard Joy talking about, here is Trump Force One. We've had unfiltered feed of his plane since it landed. It's now moving down the tarmac, likely to take off. You got to understand there's likely no wait for the former president when it comes to getting access to a runway to take off, fly back to New Jersey, where, Tracy, you were talking about it earlier, the former president may or may not go on to speak further beyond what we just heard him saying there at the airport regarding these charges, regarding the district attorney. But we also understand, and our legal experts have provided input, that he is under certain restrictions. There's a lot of things that he cannot say. He cannot attack witnesses or attack the district attorney or the lawyers or the judges. And when I say attack, I mean verbally, on Twitter, any kind of insults, those kind of things. He cannot threaten or tamper with witnesses either. So there's a long list of things, rules he has to follow, or he might find himself in front of a judge before this trial even begins. The plane making its way down the runway here, continuing to roll. It's likely going to turn onto at least one other runway, an actual runway where it will then take off. We're going to have this feed up until the plane actually gets going and takes off. So stay right here with us. You're going to witness this history with us live right now on Atlanta News First. It's 8:30 on the dot. You can check your clock. Pretty much the president was in and out here in what's been an hour and a half. You've got to believe he's going to be taking off in the next 5 minutes, honestly, not that long at all, because they're not going to let the president sit there on the tarmac, the former president, I should say, sit there on the tarmac for any longer than he needs to. And if you've been through Hartsfield, and I know a lot of you guys at home have, you know what kind of process this looks like normally when you're boarding a plane, waiting to get in your seat, and then, you know, your pilot might come over and say, we're fifth in line, we're third in line, we'll be up in the air in the next 20 minutes, the next 30 minutes. That is not the process a former president follows by any means, Tracy.
It's been a busy day, Alan. I'll tell you what, it started very early this morning. A number of people supporting and others protesting the president were down at the Rice Street Jail, even starting since yesterday. Some had been camped out overnight. They were out there awaiting the president's arrival this evening. They closed off the streets in front of Rice Street Jail earlier this morning, of course, to make sure security was tight and in place and the former president could get in and out very quickly. And during the course of the day, we kind of listened and learned that the former president had changed attorneys. Changing his counsel to a high-powered attorney, Stephen Sadow, who has represented defendants, in some RICO cases. So certainly wanted the best of the best in this situation, and no doubt his counsel met him there and traveled with him in the motorcade in order to get him to the booking earlier this evening. Trump Force One touched down exactly right at 7 o'clock and traveled right up the freeway. No resistance there, no traffic at all. And Mr. Trump made his way into the Rice Street Jail shortly, right around 7:30 or so. So the process has been very quick. He was booked into the jail, fingerprinted, mugshot taken. We expect to have that mugshot shortly. Arrested and then released on bond. A $200,000 bond had been set up earlier in the week. Mr. Trump agreed to that along with his attorneys, I think on Monday, and 10% was put up, so about $20,000. And then within a matter of just 20 minutes, Mr. Trump was released and back in the motorcade and back all the way to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. And that's what brought us to this point today. And of course, as the nation watches what has happened here, a number of people are going to speculate, what does this mean for his political career? Will this be a benefit? Will it be a detriment? I think any indication from last night's debate that it may not hurt Mr. Trump in this process. We can see the lights on there on Trump Force One really getting ready to take off, and it'll be wheels up in a matter of minutes.
It sure will. And we saw a quick pause there from the plane, likely communicating with air traffic control regarding which runway, what time, the timeline. You have to believe that the former president is going to get priority when it comes to leaving Hartsfield-Jackson. They very likely are pulling on some kind of ground stop, some kind of control as far as who can and who cannot take off right now, no matter who you are or where you're going. If you're in one of those terminals at Hartsfield, the world's busiest airport, coming to a stop right now as the former president gets ready to take the air. And you are watching it live. We're waiting on him to jump onto the runway he'll actually be taking off from. It's been a travel there from where he spoke to reporters and once again called the election interference legal. And he also said that what he did was not wrong and professed his innocence continuously, as he had for the last 2 years ever since that election took place. Last 2.5 years, so to say, because it's been quite a while now. Making a right turn there onto what looks like another runway, and you got to speculate here. This might be where that plane's going to begin to accelerate and maybe take off with the former president and his team on board. This is another angle. We've got multiple angles we've been providing you here with this evening as the plane prepares to roll on. Tracy, you were talking about these charges that the former president is facing right now as that plane pauses here live on screen. One of the most severe, if not the most severe charge, is the RICO charge, which is tying all 18 of those co-defendants together as one. And it really is used to target criminal enterprises like mob bosses or crime bosses, something like that. Here goes the former president now wrapped up in that along with the other co-defendants. And it gives, on the state level, a prosecutor an expansive power because it's more vague. It's easier for a prosecutor to find somebody, to try somebody with a RICO charge at the state level than it is at the federal level. It is nearly impossible to get a guilty charge down from the federal level, but Bonnie Willis decided to go with the RICO charge, but some people have questioned in the last several weeks here saying, well, why would you want to go with the RICO charge? Because that is still something that's vague. You're trying all 18 together. But what it does, it provides her with a bottom-up approach where she can do her best from her end, from the prosecution side, work to flip those co-defendants one by one from the bottom up and turn them against who she says is the leader, which is none other than the former president, Donald Trump. That is likely going to be her strategy, according to our Atlanta News First attorneys, according to legal experts outside of Atlanta News First. This is what the discussion has been, and we talked about it as well. One of the co-defendants said, hey, I want a speedy trial. I have a right to a speedy trial. Let's move it up to November. And then Bonnie Willis responded and said, look, I've been doing this for 2 years. How about October 23rd? I'll raise you October 23rd and we'll make it happen then. Will that be granted or not? There's going to be a lot of pushback. Donald Trump, the former president, has already filed against that, saying we do not want a speedy trial. There is way too much to do between now and October to make this happen. And yet that is what the justice system looks like. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. That includes the former president, but he's got 4 battles right now he's looking to win in court. The latest one right here in Atlanta, Georgia, in Fulton County. So that plane right there, Trump Force One, has been sitting still for quite a while. The belief is that they're likely corresponding, the plane, the pilots, air traffic control, discussing what this takeoff is going to look like, because just like the motorcade, just like the traveling, just like anywhere a president or a former president travels, every single move is calculated. Everything is decided way ahead of time. And we in the media, you guys at home, anybody who is watching or viewing from the outside looking in does not know what the inside is doing to control the outside. And that is where we're at right now, all together, all of us, the viewers, everybody at home, as we not only await for this plane to begin to take off, we also wait for the former president's mugshot, which is likely going to be coming out of the Fulton County Jail here, honestly, any minute as soon as they get that update, Tracy.
I know there's some news outlets that have it already, so we are waiting to get our hands on it. And to just reiterate, the president spoke on the tarmac briefly, again, saying he did nothing wrong, thanked the reporters for being there and described this case against him as a travesty of justice. And many of his supporters and also the former president going after District Attorney Fani Willis, calling her corrupt, saying that this investigation is rigged, that all of it is an effort to suppress him as a candidate and in some ways uplift his potential Democratic opponent, current President Joe Biden. DA Fani Willis is a Democrat, so there are some who allege that there are some workings in there that she might be doing that to kind of suppress any momentum that the former president could have in his campaign. And again, he's saying, this is election interference, essentially what he has been charged with. And this, one of the key pieces of evidence, no doubt, in this case is that phone call he made to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, trying to find out where they can find some additional votes. His campaign manager, Mark Meadows, was on that call as well, trying to push and urge Georgia officials to find some extra votes. Is there some way we can do this? How about if, we can do this, if we can come to some kind of agreement? So really that phone call will be used as some key evidence. And Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger will be testifying on Monday about evidence in that. As we take a live look at the tarmac once again, waiting for Trump Force One to take off.
Lights on.
The lights are on, and no doubt it will take off very shortly.
There you go.
Yep, I think they're getting ready to take off now. So a very quick and expeditious journey for the former president here in Fulton County. This is one more thing to kind of check off the list. Of course, DA Fani Willis last week had said when she handed down all these, and when these indictments were handed up, that everyone needed to appear, turn themselves in by noon tomorrow. Of course, that deadline quickly approaching for some other co-defendants. Chief Investigative Reporter Brendan Keefe here in the studio joining us. And Brendan, understand the mugshot. I know some other news outlets have it right now. You have some new information for us tonight.
Yes, we are in the process of confirming that what CNN has is the actual mugshot. We are a CNN affiliate. We'll bring it to you as soon as we independently confirm it. There have been multiple fake mugshots circulating immediately. Some of them just outright fakes, wrong tie color, wrong lighting. Others have matched the lighting from the other mugshots. Obviously, hey, look, I enjoy sitting up at night and toying with Photoshop, but sending that out, it's gone viral. It just shows you the appetite for information here. Right now, you can see that 757. It is now wheels up. The former president of the United States, 45th president of the United States, now airborne over Atlanta, taking off from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. That is 757, tail number November 757, Alpha Foxtrot.
You have it memorized.
Yeah, November 757 AF. A friend of mine was tracking it on the way in and turned out to be accurate coming in here. But that's it. Boy, what a fast booking process. Absolutely extraordinary.
And one thing I want to say, Brendan, for all of our viewers who are watching at home, you've been watching with us here on CBS, WANF since 7 o'clock. We are going to continue our coverage right now, but we encourage you to turn over to ANF Plus. That is where we are going to continue our coverage. That can be found anywhere you are watching us via stream, whether that is Facebook, whether that is YouTube Live, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, wherever you are streaming your news or where you get your streaming services, search Atlanta News First. Our coverage will continue right there as we move forward discussing this for the next 18 minutes here. We're going to continue our coverage. We are not going off the air, but we are going to leave CBS right here and allow you guys to make that transfer over to ANF Plus. Again, one more time, you can scan this QR code right there on your phone. You can actually access it from the couch. If you zoom in on that QR code, your phone will pick it up. It'll bring you right to where you can continue to watch us. Again, Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, Facebook, and ANF Plus. We'll see you there.
Welcome to Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Tracy Hutchins alongside Alan Devlin. It has certainly been a historic day here in Atlanta and Fulton County, where we witnessed the arrest, the booking of former President Donald Trump here in our city, facing those charges of trying to meddle in the 2020 presidential election here in Georgia.
We sure have, and it has been a historic day, a monumental day that cannot be understated, honestly. We've had a team of reporters out all over the area, both at the airport, along that motorcade. We took you guys inside the motorcade as it was traveling, and we've, of course, got the jail and the courthouse covered as well. One of those reporters who's been out there going on 9 hours at this point, pretty much for the last 2 weeks, Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon. Doug, it's dark now. The last time we spoke to you, it was bright. It seems like a lot of those protesters and a lot of those supporters of the former president have started to fan out there as the president leaves Atlanta airspace. What's going on?
Right, well, you're absolutely correct. The presence here has died down significantly after everybody kind of got word that the former president had left the jail complex. Even the police presence is dying down quite a bit, although I know that's not obvious from the presence behind me. But the roads have been cleared out. We can see a good line of traffic of everybody leaving this jail complex who came today to take in the spectacle of what was a day in history. And I think we expected a bit of an explosion, and what we got instead was somewhat of a fizzle. We didn't know what to expect. We, of course, have had all sorts of ranges of different, and I apologize for the noise if you can in fact hear that. I'm not sure what the problem is, but we've had all sorts of different factors of people turning themselves in here. Some have done so overnight, in the middle of the night, so as not to be picked up by cameras. Some, like Rudy Giuliani yesterday, came and held a press conference outside of the jail. So it was a bit of a coin toss for us. We didn't exactly know what to expect with the former president arriving here and turning himself into the jail today. But as you mentioned, we got out here just before noon. It was a sweltering day, and these were very tight quarters. People were packed shoulder to shoulder. The entire street here on Rice was lined with tents and cameras and tripods, reporters, opponents and supporters of the former president, and there was very little room, truthfully, to move around throughout most of the day. Even the parking lot here, people were cramming in, cars were blocked in, people couldn't get out because it was so dense in here for people all waiting for the same thing. Shortly after we got down here, we heard word from the former president himself actually telling us he was going to be here at 7:30, and as I understand it, we have confirmed that we have the former president's mugshot. This is what we have gotten confirmed. This is what we have gotten from the Fulton County Jail. This is history, folks. We're looking at it right now. A former president's mugshot, the 45th president of the United States, being booked, being processed. I think for a lot of people, this is really quite a jarring sight to see, especially for a lot of folks that we talked to out here today who are staunch supporters of the former president. They said seeing what you're looking at right now, a mugshot of him being booked and processed in that jail, would be a sad thing. A lot of people told us it was going to make them angry. But again, this is, you can imagine, something that he will capitalize off of. He has played the victim many, many times before in some of his legal proceedings. And I have to just say, before we send it back to you guys in the studio, we really expected the former president, or at least his attorneys, to make some sort of comment today. How unlike it is it of former President Trump to not take advantage of a press opportunity? He even upstaged the GOP debate last night by coming here to Fulton County today. So, of course, we'll stay on this. I'm sure we'll have more coverage for you throughout the night and tomorrow, but for now, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
We sure will, Doug. Thank you. Everybody, Atlanta, Georgia, we are watching this together, no matter if you are a supporter of the president or if you are a protester of the former president, I should say. This is a sad day to have a former president with a mugshot on our airways right now. And you're looking at it. It took us a little bit of time to fully make sure this was the actual mugshot. There are fake mugshots that have been floating around here for a while, but Atlanta News First can confirm this is the mugshot that was taken of the former president here in Fulton County earlier today. And this is now going to be blanketed not only here in Georgia, not only here in the United States. This is a photo the entire world will see, and this will have massive implications in his upcoming campaign for president. Whether those implications be good or bad, we're going to have to wait and see, Tracy.
And our affiliate, Alan, CNN reporting that jail records show that he was placed under arrest and booked as inmate number P011358809. And this, as you say, will go down in history. That number, the former president's mugshot, the expression on his face this day as well. And part of that booking process, there at the jail, they take some essential critical information, including your height. Former president, 6 feet, 3 inches tall, weighs 215 pounds, listed as having blue eyes, blonde or strawberry hair. It can be a very intrusive process. From what I understand, there are parts of that process that I do not believe the president underwent, that other people would likely undergo during that booking process. But from the very beginning, Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt said that the former president and any of the other co-defendants would be treated like anyone else being processed and booked into the Fulton County Jail. Fingerprinting, mugshots, the entire process. Now, this one was certainly expedited for Mr. Trump. In this case, that process only taking about 20 minutes in total. The freeways cleared so he could get here from the airport, from New Jersey, and then get out just as quickly, making it back to the airport. And now the former president wheels up on his way to New Jersey.
Exactly, Tracy. We've got Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakrin, who has been watching history unfold before our very eyes all evening long. Joy, we are all now looking at the former president's mugshot.
Yeah, we are looking at his mugshot, and, presumably fingerprints had been taken. I have with me on either side criminal defense attorneys who regularly help their clients through the booking process at the Fulton County Jail and argue cases at the Fulton County Courthouse. I have J. Edward Shipp, local criminal defense attorney, and I have Suri Chada Jimenez, who's actually on the YSL case right now. Let me ask you, we've heard so much talk about how the booking process for these defendants, including the former president, would be like any other defendant in some cases. How long does it take your clients to get booked in the Fulton County Jail?
Oh man, that statement is insane. This has been nothing like any other defendant. Usually it takes anywhere from 2 to 8 hours to get somebody processed in and out, and in some instances, even when we have consent bonds already signed, it may take days for them to be released. So the idea that, he's being treated just like any other defendant is, not necessarily the truth, but we do understand the circumstances with him being a former president.
And are they typically brought in a police car?
If they are brought in cuffs, then yes, they are brought in a police car. But, even when somebody turns themselves in, it still is a long process for the regular clients that some of us serve.
And I assume they're not escorted by Secret Service and the roads are not shut down for your clients.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were a good lawyer, but I guess you couldn't pull that off.
Hey, not.
Look, so Suri, of course, we've had you on multiple times because you are, a defense attorney working on the YSL case. Because of that, your work on that case, the new lead defense attorney for Mr. Trump. So as of just today, he announced that Steve Sadow here in Atlanta was going to lead his defense team. He parted ways with Drew Feinling. Steve Sadow has had some very high-profile clients, T.I., Usher, Rick Ross, and Gunna. We talked about Gunna is really relevant here because apparently reached a plea deal back in December for his role in the YSL case, right?
Well, the case with Gunna, he got a great deal, right? He's home. He's out on probation, non-reporting probation. He doesn't even have to testify. However, he didn't do anything. He just happened to be a rapper in a record label that they're accusing of being a gang. There is nothing to link Gunna to any crimes. So he got a great deal, but it hurt his reputation. I hope that this case can be resolved without wasting millions, and I say millions, in taxpayers' dollars by having a trial of 19 people shutting down the streets every single day for months and months. That's just not the proper way to use taxpayer dollars.
So, just to kind of, clarify the parallels for our viewers, obviously YSL is a RICO case that's underway. I mean, the jury selection process, we're in the 8th month of the year, jury has still not been selected. The process is still underway. It's, actually the longest in history so far. But, this is going to be another huge trial. 19 defendants here in this election meddling case, and also all of them are charged with RICO charges. Based on what we've seen in YSL, what you have seen in YSL, because you have been there day in, day out in the courtroom for this massive RICO case, what do you expect in the RICO case involving the former president?
Well, the main reason it's taking us so long is because the court is doing everything it can to make sure we find the right jurors. That is the most important part of a trial. We need to find 12 people that can give us the time, and that's going to be a multi-month trial, and can be fair to both parts, the state and the defendants. The 19 defendants, if anybody happens to have a conflict, we need to get them off that jury. I expect this to be a multi-month jury selection.
Okay. Tracy and Alan, we're going to keep tracking this. Want to send it back into you guys for now.
All right, Joy, thank you. We're going to keep the former president's mugshot up for now. He turned himself in to the Fulton County Jail. A matter of hours, really. The deadline was noon tomorrow. Turned himself in before that tomorrow deadline that DA Fani Willis gave last week when these indictments were handed up. And, it's just stunning to think about it, what has happened today. And former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms said, this is nothing to applaud, to be happy about, no matter which side of the aisle you may be on. This is a former president facing charges, serious charges, of trying to change an election.
Yeah.
That everyone, I showed up to vote, you showed up to vote,
Yes,
everyone showed up to vote as part of this. So where do we go from here? A proposed trial date, and Joy had mentioned that partially. Fulton County DA Willis asking for that trial of all 19 defendants to start on October 23rd. Extremely ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
As we know, the jury hasn't even been selected in the YSL trial, also under DA Willis's purview. And of course, Mr. Trump opposes that, as well as his attorney, so we will see how that plays out. But we cannot forget the former president facing 13 charges, the most serious of which is that RICO charge, that large umbrella that many of the other co-defendants are facing as well.
And don't let it set on you that this is the 4th time the former president has been indicted. The mugshot is new, the indictment is not. Florida, D.C., and New York tie along with these 4. And so the president right now in a world of some legal trouble here, multiple battles for him to deal with. We want to go back out to anchor and attorney Joylem Nakrin, who has been watching the mugshot, is surrounded by legal experts to continue to provide more insight into what this means for the former president and his presidential hopefuls.
Yeah, well, Alan and Tracy, Tracy started to talk about this expedited trial date that's come up because just as of today, one of the co-defendants of the former president, a former Trump attorney, Kenneth Chesbro, his team filed a motion for a speedy trial. And the judge granted that request, said, October 23rd, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis was on board with it, did not oppose it, basically said, okay, let's do it. October 23rd it is. And essentially what that would mean is that all 19 defendants would go to trial on October 23rd. Something that I've been talking about with Defense Attorney Jay Edwards Shipp here, who's been with us throughout our coverage, is all 19 defendants are probably not on board with going to trial October 23rd. So they're probably going to file some motions to sever, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. How does that look?
They're going to file those motions to sever, most likely to try and, keep from having to everybody try and get this thing done at one time. I'm sure everyone has seen how former President Trump likes to extend the process and try to weigh out all his legal options. So it would be most likely that he would say, okay, well, I mean, he's already done it with his new counsel, has opposed going to trial on October the 23rd. So he's looking to give himself some more time to kind of see what's going on. I mean, with this motion to sever, if they go ahead and have Attorney Chesebro's trial on the 23rd, then that gives former President Trump and other co-defendants the chance to see exactly what these guys are going to be hit with during their trial. I mean, it gives them a preview of what's going on and what to expect at trial. So, yeah, they're most likely going to file those motions to sever.
Defendants, and each of them their team of 5 to 10 lawyers.
Yeah, and before we let you go, one other question. Why have we not seen all of these 19 defendants surrender themselves yet? There's 7 that still have not.
I don't know if they just don't have lawyers or what are they trying to do. Go ahead, call the DA's office, make a deal, get a bond. You don't want to sit there for months like everybody else that's sitting in that jail.
Jay, what's your opinion on that?
I would agree. The last thing that you want to do is become a regular person and sit in the Fulton County Jail for months on end and be treated like a regular citizen instead of the expedited process you've been given lately.
Yeah, but again, all 19 defendants, including the former president, now are facing these charges, indicted on Georgia's RICO statute and much more. We're going to continue our coverage here on Atlanta News First, Atlanta News First Plus, AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Download our free mobile news app to get alerts sent to your phone.
News.
Breaking right now at the top of the hour, a mugshot for the history buffs. Former President Donald Trump booked at the Fulton County Jail tonight.
The former president was arrested on charges related to illegal attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Mr. Trump fingerprinted, posting bond, defiant to the end.
Good evening. I'm Sean Gables.
And I'm Rick Fulbaum. And we heard Mr. Trump. We heard from him just moments after he got out of that booking process, before he got back onto his airplane heading back to New Jersey.
Let's listen in.
Sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning.
That was the former president again saying he did nothing wrong. And this evening, history was made in the state of Georgia and across the country.
We are really watching events here that have no precedent. Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon live outside the Fulton County Jail for us tonight. Doug.
Right. I mean, I think it would be safe to say that this is the highest profile mugshot in the history of the country. Certainly, the 45th president of the United States took it right in there at the Fulton County Jail earlier today, staying true to his word from what he said in this afternoon post to his site Truth Social, that he would be here at 7:30. All told, the former president was in that facility for all of 30 minutes before popping out getting in his motorcade and going off to the tarmac at Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta. And of course, as we have noted many times, we have heard from law enforcement here in Fulton County that the former president would be treated just like anyone else. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire process was the same as for any other detainee here. Of course, that would be a much longer process, hours in some cases, but the former president, of course, is who he is, and in many ways it was the same. He did get his mugshot taken. We know he was booked in process because we have that paperwork, and we've shown it to you throughout this afternoon. And of course, maybe we shouldn't be surprised that before leaving Atlanta, the former president got a word in to the cameras because, again, that is very much how he campaigns. He uses media. He is very adept at using the cameras that are put in front of him to get his message out there. He, in fact, skipped the GOP debate last night and instead did a one-on-one sit-down with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, where he said some very similar things to what he said out at Hartsfield-Jackson today. Take another listen to another portion of that press conference he gave.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support.
Right, and so again, I think we expected an explosion out here. We thought maybe because Rudy Giuliani did it when turning himself in yesterday, the former president might come here and address cameras here at the jail facility. He instead waited until he got to the airport. But what comes next is what I think we can probably refer to as the paper battle. Lots of motions, lots of filings, lots of really nitty-gritty legal court stuff ahead of this proposed October 23rd start date for this trial. Everyone will be kind of man for themselves in this, of these 19 defendants, of course, all looking to do see what they can do to get the best possible outcome here. Even Trump's new attorney today, Steve Sadow, hinted at a possible dismissal attempt of all of these charges, which he said his client is innocent on. We're live outside the Fulton County Jail tonight. Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
Thank you, Doug. Atlanta News First, Tori Cooper, also live outside the Fulton County Jail.
Tori, one of Trump's strongest supporters, Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, standing firm by the former president tonight.
That's right, Sean. Very predictable hearing from Marjorie Taylor Greene as she made her way out here to show her support for former President Donald Trump. She had a chance to answer some questions from the media. I was about this far away from her and I asked her what she was doing here. She says, I'm here to support the former president. I also asked her what she thought about the latest court filing that Judge McAfee approved. And she says, I want to make sure that Fani Willis knows she's going to lose her job and we are going to be conducting an investigation through the Judiciary Committee. She also went on to call this a shameful event. She also said that she was in constant communication with the former president, and she says that the former president told her today that he was outraged by what's happening here in Fulton County. Take a listen to what else she told us.
I'm in constant communication with him. I support President Trump. I just came from the Republican debate in Milwaukee last night, landed here this morning. The reason why I'm here is because this is my home state. I was born and raised in the state of Georgia, and I'm here as a Georgian. I'm also here as a member of Congress. We're going to be standing up against the weaponized government, and we're launching an investigation into Fani Willis through the Judiciary Committee.
Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene was not the only person who showed up here. I also had a chance to speak with former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I just asked her reaction to what's happening today. And she said this is really just a sad day. No one should be happy about what's happening today. She also said that she was happy, though, to see that those people are being held accountable, the 19 co-defendants listed in this indictment. And lastly, she did also mention that she's happy that the election workers in Fulton County, Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, are going to get justice. Now, if you recall, those are the two election workers that were at State Farm Arena who were accused of walking out with suitcases full of ballots. Now, they have been doing everything to get their reputation back, and former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms said that she's hopeful they will get justice after this continues. So we're going to be out here. It's finally wrapping up, and many media crews are leaving, and many supporters of former President Donald Trump have also left the area. Reporting live from outside the Fulton County Jail tonight, I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
And of course, all of this comes as the conditions at the Rice Street Jail face a federal investigation. Atlanta News First, Patrick Quinn joins us where DOJ officials, Patrick, were on the scene there as recently as last week.
That Rice Street's the Titanic. that the rich are being afforded lifeboats and life jackets, and while the poor, disenfranchised and people of color are either can't afford the life jackets that may or may not exist, but also being just locked below deck to die.
Atlanta criminal defense attorney Erin King says she's had hundreds of clients at the Fulton County Jail, and while her words are alarming, they're not inaccurate. We checked. 7 inmates have died at the jail this calendar year. There have been 24 custody deaths since 2019.
Our clients are treated like animals. They are completely ignored.
This summer, the Department of Justice launched a civil rights investigation into the conditions at the Fulton County Jail. I've learned investigators were there as recently as late last week. For Commissioner Bob Ellis, the issues at the Fulton County Jail will still be there when the high-profile defendants leave.
Hey, there's been a spotlight on this jail based on other activities that have gone on. And that's, quite frankly, much more important to me than celebrities going through there and potentially being booked and, whatever show that's going to produce.
County leaders say they're moving forward with plans to build a new jail, a $1.68 billion investment. For Erin, who has 2 clients inside right now, she knows 36% of inmates are unindicted, meaning they're still waiting formal charges, unlike the former president and the other defendants being processed quickly.
I'm not asking for things to be harder on them. I'm asking for things to be easier on our clients that are often forgotten.
All right, let's turn now to Atlanta News First Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe. Quite a day, Brendan, and the day started with a flurry of motions. First of all, the former president hiring a new attorney. We learned that today. And then there were a flurry of motions about when the trial should take place, what is going to happen next. What were the main takeaways?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of surprises, Rick. Just like last time, we knew there were indictments, but for 3 hours, we had no idea what was coming next. We didn't know what the indictments were. And we roll with the punches here, right? And we're doing that now here again today. So just recapping just what's happened today, as you mentioned, we have a change in the lead counsel here in Georgia for Donald Trump. We have an emergency filing just coming yesterday from Kenneth Chesborough, asking basically for a speedy trial, which is 60 days. And everyone was like, whoa, he's basically freezing the kicker when it comes to the district attorney. Hey, the district attorney is, she can't bring this to trial in 60 days. And then what happens? Fani Willis files a motion saying, okay, we're ready. We're not just ready to try Kenneth Chesborough. We're ready to try all 19 co-defendants simultaneously on October 23rd. That's 60 days away. And so the judge, I'm actually holding the order in my hand right now, the judge says, okay, the judge signs it just for Kenneth Chesborough right now, but that would require another order severing the cases. But essentially, we have the first trial. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and it says arraignment September 6th. It says discovery, that's essentially sharing of evidence, September 20th. Motions September 27th. Pretrial conference September 29th. And trial, that's picking a jury right here, October 23rd. So we're going to have, unless something changes radically, at least one of these defendants going to trial in just 60 days. Extraordinary.
Okay, well, it's great to hear about Kenneth Chesborough, but the headliner here is the former president. When is he going to show up in a courtroom here in Fulton County?
Yeah, right. And if you're wondering who Kenneth Chesborough is, he is accused of being involved in that sort of fake elector or alternate elector plot. But the big question is, when is Donald Trump, the one who's accused of being the mastermind of this criminal enterprise, according to the indictment, when is he going to go to trial? He is going to try to push this as far as possible. How do we know? He's already done it in his federal cases. He wants all of these trials to take place after the November 2024 election. So now we have these competing things happening at the same time. And what's going to happen is he's going to have a motion to sever. It's almost guaranteed. He's also probably going to have a motion like Meadows in federal court to have this transferred over to federal court. And so there's a lot more motions coming. Delay is the friend of someone who is trying to defend charges like this, unless you're trying to freeze the kicker like Chesborough did.
Brendan Keefe, our chief investigator. Brendan, thank you very much.
Atlanta News First brought you live coverage from the moment the former president touched down here in Atlanta. There is so much more to come as we count down to the deadline for everyone to turn themselves in. Download the Atlanta News First app now. You'll get notifications sent to your smartphone as this develops.
All right. Well, we know it's been a very busy day, but we do want to talk about the weather because we can talk about history. We're going to have some triple-digit feels like temperatures in our forecast. Let's check in with First Alert meteorologist Patrick Pete.
Yeah, you think it's feeling soupy outside right now. Wait until we head through the next couple of days. Those dew points are going to stay elevated. Those numbers in the low to mid 70s, even upper 70s out there is the reason why you step outside and you start to sweat, no matter if you're just standing in one place or not. Temperatures still elevated at this late hour. 89 degrees here in Atlanta, 86 Marietta, 87 Kennesaw. You head towards the north, you can get into the upper 70s in the mountains. 79 currently in LJ. Over in Gainesville, they're at 78 degrees. It is going to be warm again as we push into the overnight hours. That AC needs to be going full blast. Meanwhile, the skies are dry. Those showers have diminished. We'll see temperatures slide into the upper 70s as we head into the early morning hours, and that's about as low as it's going to get. 76 for the start of the day here in Atlanta. Low 70s elsewhere across the metro. And as we head into the next few days, multiple first alerts as temperatures soar into the upper 90s with feel-like numbers that are going to be 100 degrees plus. That is prompting several heat alerts, including a heat advisory that goes into effect tomorrow. I'm going to time out the heat advisory, tell you how hot it's going to feel through the afternoon coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, we'll see you in a bit, Patrick. We are going in depth on the case against the former president and his co-defendants.
An inside look at what you might not know about the Fulton County District Attorney.
Sweeping security changes for the safety of high school students in the state's biggest district.
And work to help pets abandoned in the wildfires in Hawaii.
Every morning, you expect
Continue our team coverage of Donald Trump's arrest tonight with a closer look at the woman ready to go head-to-head with the former president.
This is not Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's first high-profile case, but it is arguably the biggest that she has taken on. Atlanta News first Savannah Louie joins us now. Savannah.
Rick, Sean, we really got to talk about the timing of all of this. It's really remarkable. DA Willis taking office just one day after that infamous phone call at the center of this indictment, in which Trump asked Georgia Secretary of State to, quote, find the votes to help him win the 2020 election. Willis is a Democrat and the first woman to hold the position. When she took office January 3rd, 2021, she said her first priority is to make the community safe. She previously served as the City of South Fulton Chief Municipal Court Judge in 2019 and Fulton County Assistant District Attorney for 17 years before that. DA Willis has a history of using RICO, or racketeering and corruption charges traditionally used to nail mafia bosses. In 2014, she notably used this as lead prosecutor in the Atlanta teacher cheating scandal, convicting a dozen teachers for their roles in falsifying test scores. This year, she also used it in a case against rappers Young Thug and Gunna. Willis's term as district attorney ends December 31st of next year. And exactly 2 weeks ago, she launched a fundraising website just days before making that announcement of the indictment against Trump and his allies. Rick?
Savannah, thank you. In non-Trump news tonight, some precious pups are looking for their forever home in California after those devastating wildfires ravaged parts of Hawaii. This batch of 20 orphaned pets from Maui were flown to San Diego this week. Animal rescuers took them to an animal center in the area, giving them a place to stay and find a new home on the mainland, while opening up more space at shelters on the island.
Hawaii Animal Rescue Foundation on the island of Maui asked if we could take some of their shelter animals that have been in the shelter for a long time, and by taking them we're opening up spaces so that people who have lost their houses can put their animals there.
People will be able to adopt the pets over the next few weeks once they clear their medical checks.
We are inside the First Alert Forecast Center. Patrick Pete has been watching a trend of very warm weather. The question is will we break any records? I mean, it is hot.
Yeah, it's going to be really hot the next couple of days, and although I think we'll get close, I don't see us breaking any over the next few days. But the heat is going to be a beast. And you know, you don't have to break a record for it to be hot. We already know that heat is the #1 weather-related killer out there. And look at this, a plethora of heat alerts over the course of the next couple of days, literally stretching over a dozen states. Excessive heat warnings across portions of the Midwest, stretching all the way down into the Deep South. Meanwhile, heat advisories in effect for a lot of us. That's going to include parts of North Georgia. Noon to 8 o'clock tomorrow, we're first alerting because those feel-like temperatures are going to be over 100 degrees, could top 105 in many of these locations. It is going to be dangerous to be out and about. Remember, all those heat-related illnesses, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, heat cramps, all become likely whenever you're prolonged exposed to these type of feel-like numbers. Meanwhile, we're looking pretty good for the morning as far as the skies are concerned. Lots of sunshine for the first half of the day, pushing into the early afternoon. Much like today, we do have that chance for a pop of showers and isolated rumbles of thunder as we push into the second half of the day. We'll be watching 5 to 6 for some of that to bubble up. We don't expect everybody to pick up on it, but this is a good time for you to scan this QR code and download this First Alert weather app. One of these cells fires up near you. We're going to tell you how far the lightning is away, and you can track that on our radar. Meanwhile, those showers and storms should diminish as we approach sunset. That should lead to a dry overnight hours. Meanwhile, the afternoon is just really going to be a beast. Those feel-like numbers already at 100 degrees at lunchtime. Good day to go ahead and bag up your lunch and bring it in so you don't have to step out into this until 5 o'clock, where those feel-like numbers are going to be near 106. So we're first alerting essentially from around 10 a.m. through the rest of the day. It is going to be a beast. If you're going out to check out Chris Stapleton, he's hitting the stage at 7 o'clock. We do have that 20% chance of a shower. Otherwise, it's just going to be hot and humid through the evening. Numbers gradually sliding into the lower 80s as we push closer to the 10 o'clock hour. And it's really going to be a rinse and repeat as we head into your Saturday. Morning numbers in the upper 70s for everybody that's hitting the links or maybe going to check out the tournament. Meanwhile, feeling like 98 degrees at lunchtime. Those feel like numbers getting into triple digits for a few hours. A little bit more moisture around. Looks like most of that's going to be to the west and to the east of us, but I do expect some pop-ups to fire up in the afternoon. That should diminish as we push into the evening. Another hot and humid evening. This is going to repeat itself into Sunday. That's why we have first alerts for the next 3 days, as not only temperatures are going to be hanging out in the upper 90s, but those feel-like numbers are going to be well above 100 degrees for a large chunk of our afternoon. You can see those scattered showers and thunderstorms do increase by Monday. We are looking at more moisture building in. We may have the first alert for some storms there. You're going to have to tune in as we head through the next day or so as we get more data. Meanwhile, unsettled weather pattern lingers through Wednesday.
All right, thanks very much, Patrick. Pumpkin spice, a sure sign of the fall, right? You know, Halloween time, Thanksgiving around the corner. Well, pumpkin spice is happening a little early this year.
And
now.
Right, no one cares that it's almost triple-digit weather and it's only the month of August. We're going to share what's making the fall flavor come sooner than ever before. The dog days of summer clinging to Georgia like a sweaty shirt, but for some people and businesses, fall is in full swing.
That's right. Atlanta News First reporter Joshua Skinner dove deep into the patch to find out why Americans are so enamored with pumpkins and how pumpkin culture is taking over earlier and earlier this year.
School has started and college football is just a couple of days away, which has many Georgians wistful for the fall season. But it's still August and it's still really, really hot outside. But that doesn't mean people aren't going all pumpkin on everything. It's an epidemic. Pumpkin pillows, pumpkin lanterns, even pumpkin Disney.
Pumpkins just make people happy.
I sought out Metro Atlanta's foremost pumpkin-er to get to the bottom of the pumpkin-demic.
They do call me the pumpkin lady.
Her name is Kelly Laughlin, and her business revolves around, you guessed it, pumpkins.
You've got gourds and you've got white, you've got stackable, you've got pie pumpkins, you've got giant pumpkins.
Laughlin is the chief pumpkin officer of Pretty Pumpkin Porches Atlanta, meaning she perches pumpkins on people's porches.
Started last year with 52,000 pounds of pumpkins.
And even in August, Americans can't get enough of the vegetable.
Pumpkin is a fruit.
What?
Pumpkin is a fruit. It's not a vegetable. Everybody thinks it's a vegetable, but it's a fruit.
Not relevant to this story, but what is relevant is pumpkin season officially kicks off today, with Starbucks selling its popular pumpkin spice latte, maybe the biggest hoax in all of consumerism.
Well, I think that's a deep secret that people don't realize, that there's not pumpkin and pumpkin spice.
It's more likely people don't care. They just want more pumpkin.
Pumpkin bread, pumpkin pancakes, pumpkin ice cream, pumpkin shakes.
Hefty even introduced a pumpkin spice trash bag today, strong enough to carry multiple pumpkins.
I think people really want something to be happy about and celebrate.
Meaning it's just a matter of time before pumpkin pizza.
It's never too early.
Holding on to summer, Joshua Skinner.
Oh, I think this is just making me sweat more.
Atlanta News First.
Do you like my pumpkin cologne? Can you smell it?
I do. It's special. All right, we saw people flocking to support the former president when he arrived here in Atlanta.
Atlanta News First was on the ground as hundreds of people lined Rice Street.
And our exclusive restaurant report card is back, this time taking a tour around East Lake Golf Club. Fans of the former president loud and proud outside the jail today, claiming he did nothing wrong. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Gables.
I'm Rick Folbaum. Atlanta News First, Chelsea Bime for continuing our team coverage tonight. And Chelsea, you spent a lot of the day talking to some Trump supporters.
I did, and at this point, they're pretty much all have gone home for the night. What's left now is a bunch of media out here. You can still see the tents and the trucks behind us, but those Trump supporters started showing up here outside the jail around 10 o'clock this morning. They were wearing hats and waving flags and brought signs all in support of Donald Trump. They believe he's innocent and did nothing illegal during the 2020 election here in Georgia. They're calling this indictment a witch hunt by District Attorney Fani Willis and the, quote, radical left. One man we spoke with tonight even drove here from South Carolina to be here for today. He says he's been a fan and supporter of Donald Trump since his first day in office back in 2016.
To see the man, he's a life-changing vision from God. This is his fourth indictment. It's they are trying to do everything they can to keep him out of office, but they will not be able to stop Trump. They will not be able to stop it.
There were also a handful of protesters out here tonight. There was really never anything violent, but there were several heated discussions between protesters and supporters. Reporting live from the Fulton County Jail, Chelsea Bime for Atlanta News First.
Thank you, Chelsea. Atlanta News First is dedicated to covering the Fulton County indictment and everything that develops from it in a fair and balanced way. Download the Atlanta News First app right now, and you'll get notifications sent to your phone as we track the latest in the case.
We're going to check out the Mercedes-Benz tonight. A warm night to be out in the park, but it's not cooling down much this week. Our Patrick Peak is in the First Alert Forecast Center. And Patrick, you've got a couple of alerts to warn folks about.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. It's been hot and humid the last few days. It's only going to get more hot and more humid as we push through the next few days, which is why we are first alerting. We had some showers and storms that were isolated earlier today. Those have diminished across the region, and we're looking at clearing skies, but still dealing with some warm numbers. 89 degrees the current temperature here in Atlanta, a full 10 degrees cooler over in Covington. Same for LJ. Meanwhile, the mid 80s over in Rome. You can see that 89 degrees that we're tracking at home is yet again cooler than what folks are experiencing in Chicago and Des Moines. Those folks are in the lower 90s, and believe it or not, their feel-like numbers right now are well over 100. I think that feel-like temperature in Chicago is at 110 as of about 5 minutes ago. So while we are dealing with some heat, we're dealing with some humidity. The folks to the west, because of the placement of that dome, are getting a little bit more than us. Meanwhile, we're tracking numbers that are going to gradually slide into the upper 70s as we head into the early morning hours. It is going to be warm yet again as temperatures fall to about 76 degrees. And then we're first alerting tomorrow, the first of 3 alerts the next few days as temperatures head to the upper 90s. But we're talking about feel-like temperatures well over 100. I'll tell you how hot things are going to feel coming up in just a few minutes.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you. Increased efforts to keep Metro Atlanta families safe during what should be a peaceful time.
Today, the state's largest district announced sweeping security changes at one high school.
The move is in response to what happened last week. You may recall video from Discovery High in Lawrenceville. There was viral video that showed students literally running for their lives after someone said they heard gunshots following a football game. Atlanta News First, Yasmina Alston highlights the security changes.
Ahead of Friday's game, there are going to be new security measures, and today officials broke down what you can and can't do.
We are always looking for ways to make our schools and our athletic facilities safer.
Gwinnett County school officials are taking action for future football games at Discovery High School. High schoolers must be students at the school. Anyone younger must have an adult with them in the stadium. Clear bags only, and attendance capped at 1,500.
We understand that there is some concern for the safety of attendees, of children, of students, of athletes, of parents that attend. So what we want to reassure them, we're taking appropriate measures.
Gwinnett Schools Police Chief Tony Lockhart says there will also be additional police presence. It was last Friday where an incident led to a large group running out of the stadium, causing chaos.
Whenever you have a large group of individuals, students, a mob, begin running, it leads to the possibility of innocent people getting hurt.
Despite rumors, Lockhart says there was no evidence of gunshots. The investigation into the disruption is ongoing. Additionally, school officials say recent online threats to schools need to stop, adding they were not credible but still taken seriously.
Is we've seen copycats where they'll take an image of it and repost it for other schools and so forth. So if that is determined to be someone's intent is to cause a threat at another school, that individual can face consequences also.
Police are still looking to identify any people involved in last Friday's incident, saying there could be criminal charges. In Gwinnett County, Yasmina Alston, Atlanta News First.
We checked. Data from Education Week reveals there have been 25 school shootings this year that ended in either injuries or death. That's about half the amount from last year. Two of the most recent happened right here in Georgia. Last Friday, someone shot an 18-year-old student in Jonesboro during an attempted robbery. 2 days prior, an Augusta teenager was shot inside T.W. Josie High School following a fight.
The first round of the PGA Tour Championship now underway in Atlanta, but golf is not the only thing that fans can enjoy at East Lake Golf Club.
The food options are impressive. Our Adam Murphy got to check it out and has a special edition of his exclusive restaurant report card.
Hi guys, I've got a treat for you this week. From the farm to the fairway. I'm going to tell you all about it. Hey, we're at Farm Burger right here on West Ponce de Leon Avenue in Decatur, the original location. They've been here for more than a decade and they know how to prepare a delicious burger. Here's what makes them unique. 100% grass-fed beef, locally raised, no antibiotics, no hormones, made in-house and cooked to order, and every burger coming out of that kitchen is absolutely delicious. And this week, and only this week, they are teaming up with their neighbors up the road at East Lake Golf Club for the Tour Championship, and they have created a one-of-a-kind burger, and here's what it's all about.
We're calling it the ATL Grove Burger.
Hot off the grill, Farm Burger unveiled a new flavorful and juicy patty this week, made specifically for golf fans at the Tour Championship.
They approached us to do something special on the course this year, and we said absolutely, because it's a mile and a half down the road, so they really are our neighbors.
The special burger is made with the freshest ingredients that are sourced seasonally with an emphasis on in-house production of products like cured meats, jams, pickles, and sauces. And the chef's recipe for the ATL Grove Burger will no doubt whet your appetite.
He's got our grass-fed beef, he's got ground bacon and sweet onion all kind of blended into a patty, and so we're grilling that off. We top that up with some aged white cheddar, a little sweet pickle relish, and some bacon strips on top of that.
The burger got its name from this grove of trees on hole 6 at East Lake Golf Club. This is where it will be served on the course during the PGA tournament.
It sits up on a little bit of a hill, and there's a view of the Atlanta skyline, and there's a grove of trees there, and so they've carved out a little area. There'll be us doing our burgers. There's going to be Miomi Wines doing wines selling in that area, and a bunch of picnic tables.
And here at Farm Burger on West Ponce de Leon Avenue in Decatur, they earned 99 points on their last health inspection. Pretty darn good. Hey, and guys, not only can you enjoy that ATL Grove Burger on the course, there will be 2 others to choose from, like their famous Farm Burger and the Chicken Burger. And if you dine here at the Decatur restaurant, well, you can also get the Greek feta fries, some deviled eggs, and maybe a chocolate milkshake to wash it all down. That's going to do it for this week. You know the deal. I'm going to take a shot at the ATL Grove Burger. And golfers, remember, hit them straight and hit them far. We'll see you next week.
Well, I'm lousy.
Boy, that's good.
I am lousy at golf. I'm good at eating burgers,
Yeah.
though.
Oh my gosh, that looks delicious.
All right, straight ahead. A bar that has been around since the 1800s is now the site of a tragic mass shooting.
What investigators know about the latest gun violence we have seen across the country?
Also, a lawsuit against SpaceX, claiming the company discriminated against refugee workers. The Justice Department is suing SpaceX, accusing the company of discriminating against refugees. The DOJ says SpaceX claimed in job listings that only green card holders and U.S. citizens could work at the company. While there are some specific laws that limit foreign nationals from accessing key information about space vehicles, those laws do not prevent SpaceX from hiring refugees, according to the DOJ. In very different news for SpaceX, NASA says everything is a go for launching with the company tomorrow morning. A Falcon 9 rocket is set to carry a team from the U.S., Japan, Europe, and Russia to the International Space Station. The mission is set to last for 6 months. And if the launch does not happen tomorrow, NASA can try again Saturday or Sunday morning.
If you are looking to buy a home soon, it might be an even more expensive move than what you're expecting. U.S. mortgage rates are now the highest they have been since 2001. The 30-year fixed rate average now sitting at 7.23%. This is according to Freddie Mac. Its chief economist predicts rates will stay at this level or even climb higher in the short term. Federal Reserve hikes and low inventory of homes now influencing those high rates. A popular and historic biker bar in South California, now a crime scene after a mass shooting.
At least 3 people are dead, 6 others are hurt. Kara Finstrom tells us it was packed night when the gunman opened fire.
Patrons at Cook's Corner Bar and Restaurant were enjoying all-you-can-eat spaghetti night and live music when gunshots rang out Wednesday evening. Witnesses say the shooting started in the picnic area. Officers got to the popular Trabuco Canyon Bar within 2 minutes of the first 911 calls.
Deputies arrived on scene and dispatch could hear gunshots in the background.
Police say the suspected gunman shot and killed 3 people during at least 2 rounds of gunfire.
Deputies then confronted a male subject that was armed with a gun. At that point, a deputy involved shooting occurred, and that involved multiple deputies. The man believed to be involved in the shooting is deceased at the scene.
One man who escaped told police his friend died after being shot in the back while running away. Another woman said she begged the gunman to spare her because she was pregnant. He told her to leave. The Orange County District Attorney identified the gunman as John Snowling. Officials say he was a retired sergeant who worked for at least 3 decades at the Ventura, California Police Department. Cook's Corner is a well-known bar, popular with bikers and families, a roadhouse that's been around since 1884.
We're like, wait a minute, Cook's? No way. I mean, it's like this sanctum that you feel that you're in, you know, when you're at Cook's, and you're safe.
Police say the investigation is ongoing as they continue to work through interviewing at least 40 witnesses. Kara Finstrom, CBS News, Trabuco Canyon, California.
We checked. Investigators believe the shooting started as a domestic dispute. According to the Orange County Sheriff, one of the injured is the suspect's ex-wife.
All right, let's turn to meteorologist Patrick Peet. So it's late August, you know, this kind of hot weather, that's what you get in North Georgia this time of year. But we do have a little light at the end of the tunnel. I'm looking at your curve here, and I'm liking what I see come midweek next week.
Yeah, the numbers are definitely going to trend into a better territory. We're talking about getting actually back to where we should be for this time of year. So if you've been thinking it's hot, it's supposed to be hot, yeah, but we're still several degrees warmer than we should be for this time of year. And that's why we're first alerting the next couple of days. These temperatures, these are actual temperatures, upper 90s for your Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those feel-like numbers are going to be several degrees higher than that. We'll break that down in just a second. But as Rick alluded to, these temperatures will eventually fall back into the 80s as we head through next week. But we're going to have to also contend with more rain chances, which I know most lawns actually probably could use a little bit of water right now. So let's get you to some rain. We're dry for the morning, dry for the 12 o'clock hour as well. I do think that another spotty pop-up or thunderstorm or two are going to be possible as we head into the second half of the day tomorrow. I think much like today, this is going to be pretty isolated. Everybody's not going to get in on it, but the locations they get it, rain's going to come down pretty intensely. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just going to be dealing with these feel-like numbers that are just climbing off the charts. You can see already feeling like 94 degrees around lunchtime, and then we're into the triple digits for the afternoon, and that's where we're going to stay. Whether you're going to lunch, whether you're picking up the kids are walking home from the bus stop, you're going home from work, it is just going to be ridiculously hot for the afternoon. So that's why we're first alerting the second half of the day, and we're going to do it again as we push into your Saturday. The morning numbers, if you're going to grab donuts early, aren't too bad, but around lunchtime, time, already feeling like the upper 90s, triple digits in some places again. And I do think that most locations are going to get to 100 plus feel-like temperatures again for the afternoon. You can see there's a little bit more moisture around, but it looks like most of it's going to be to the west and to the east of us. I still do expect some spotty showers and thunderstorms late Saturday afternoon. That's why we have another 20% chance of rain. And we're going to see more rain opportunities as we head late into your Sunday. Unsettled weather pattern Sunday into Monday. Monday looks to be the messiest day as far as those scattered showers and storms are concerned. We'll have to keep an eye on that and the instability. Meanwhile, lingering moisture into your Tuesday. You can see that boundary kind of set up. That's why we're going to keep that 20% chance of rain into the middle of next week. So 3 first alerts for the next couple of days as temperatures are going to be flirting with 100, but those feel like numbers are going to be above. You can see that there is that low end chance for a shower each afternoon. I think better opportunities late Sunday and Monday for scattered showers and storms. That's going to linger into your Tuesday. That's also going to bring those temperatures down into the mid 80s. We're going to hang out in the mid to upper 80s through next Thursday. And we're keeping an eye on the tropics because we are in hurricane season. Tropical storm Franklin has winds sustained at 60 miles per hour, so it has intensified a little bit today. And we do expect further intensification as it moves northward in the Atlantic. Should become a Cat 2 hurricane as we head through the weekend and into the beginning of next week. We're watching that. And of course, your first alert weather team watching an area that's going to move into the Gulf of Mexico over the course of the next week. That could have a chance of becoming a depression. And then we're also tracking 2 other opportunities in the open Atlantic. We'll keep you posted here and online.
All right, Patrick, the first round of the Tour Championship wrapped up this evening over at East Lake. One former dog is tied for 4th. The story of Russell Henley ahead in sports.